Ah, there we go. Now it works on Twitch. My goodness, I'm telling you, streaming is a headache of technical chaos. Y'all lucky I like y'all. Alright, so then that would also mean YouTube should be streaming. See? I got so many tabs open right now, something's gonna crash. It just happened earlier. Oh, what are you waiting for? Yeah, okay, that's the one. Okay. Live on YouTube, live on Twitch. Looking good, looking good. All right, so now I can actually get to the point of this and start doing some productive stuff. Productive. Let's see. But I don't want to crash my computer because I did that earlier. So let me clean up some of these extras. Also, I try to do Streamlabs, and Streamlabs is just way too connect this, connect that. This works, but that doesn't. And then I gotta redo all my scenes. Not looking forward to that. Just not looking forward to that. Okay, so that should be a pretty decent value set here. I'm gonna keep up that detail there. GPU working hard. Let me clean up some extras. Aha, true. Let's throw in a little video clip here. See what's going on again. Yeah, I gotta see what's going on with this Doge thing, not the coin. Doge under investigation. Oh, Doge to investigate.
And also a very interesting topic about Iron Mountain in western Pennsylvania, the
Man,
site there
I'm
of
telling
some
you.
in the crosshairs of Doge. Let's take you out to
Don't
this
know if y'all
conversation
heard
I had
about
just a
that,
little
but
bit ago with Nate Foy. Welcome back in here to
you
Live
see
Now from
everything
Vox. I'm
going
Andy
good?
Mack. Elon Musk currently digging in to government inefficiency, and he's literally doing it underground. The
Oh
converted
yeah.
limestone mine that is in Doge's crosshairs is very much real. And in a press conference in the Oval Office on Tuesday, Elon Musk, the head of the Department of Government Efficiency, said the U.S. government stores and processes all retirement paperwork in a converted limestone mine. And of course, federal employees' retirements processed
There we
using
go.
paper by hand in an old limestone mine in Pennsylvania. 700 plus mine workers operate 230 feet underground to process roughly 10,000 applications per month, which are stored in manila envelopes and cardboard boxes. So this is very interesting. And we're going to be joined right now by Fox News correspondent Nate Foy on the ground in Pennsylvania. Nate, thank you so much for joining us here on Live Now from Fox. What's exactly going on inside of this converted limestone mine?
Well, people are still working here, and as the Trump administration tries
Clean
to
up some
shrink the federal
stuff.
workforce, processing federal employee retirement applications is going to be crucial in doing that. And this is where the bulk of that work is done at a converted limestone mine in western Pennsylvania. Take a look at this
Just think
video.
about that for a second. Like, I mean, I get the kind of logistics or the safety behind a mine, keeping documents and all that jazz. But to store all your documents in a mine shaft under an elevator, like you have to essentially go through this elevator up and down continuously. That's your bottleneck right there. And we're in the 20th century, y'all. Like we got computers that can basically manage all of our information, data, bank accounts, subscriptions. Like Like, just think about that too. It's really easy to manage people's payments to stuff. But when it comes to retirement, when the government's about to pay you back, they're like, nah, we're not gonna make it efficient. We're just gonna put some papers in a mine underneath. And whoever can get retirement, lucky you. If you can't, we can only process 10,000 a month. A month. This is from millions of people in the United States, 10,000 a month. Some people don't even get to retire their stuff, man. How crazy is that? All right, there's my little thing here. I wanted to optimize my banner.
From our Fox News flight team, you can see the entrance to the mine here. There's armed checkpoints, metal detectors, and biometric access markers. Meanwhile, 220 feet underground, take a look at the working environment. This video is from Iron Mountain, the company the U.S. government leases the space from. Workers go through each application by hand after receiving documents from whatever federal agency a worker is retiring from so they can get their full pension. The Office of Personnel Management says it processed 7,381 claims per month last year. The agency tells Fox News, quote, OPM is evaluating methods to enhance the efficiency of retirement application processing. The agency received $18 million just 2 months ago to modernize the process, but they haven't responded to our request asking how that money is being spent.
The federal retirement system is being processed deep into the ground and is not computerized. And the president and Elon are shining a light on the truth about our federal government.
So people at home are probably wondering why we're still doing it this way in 2025. And the answer is, since the 1980s, the U.S. has invested more than $100 million to try to modernize this system. And they've failed every time because essentially it is too complex. And then during the Obama administration, they doubled down and hired more workers to continue doing it the old way, but at a faster pace. So here we are, Musk really exposed to millions of Americans how this all works. And now the Trump administration is promising.
Look, as a programmer, I have to be clear. I mean, as a computer science guy, I gotta be clear. There's like a method for seeing what you have created as a program. It works fine. Cool. It does its job. Nice. But you start tinkering with the details. Maybe you can do this more efficiently. Maybe you can do that. Where's the bottleneck? What can I improve? Am I going through too many loops? You know, sometimes loops can take a while to actually process. And you try to find ways to optimize stuff. But when it comes to the government, it's just not the same. It's just not the same. Um, it's kind of a sad thing. It's essentially like trying to, like, you put $100 million, like, give me $100 million. I will improve the system. Easy. I will spend day and night working on that system. It's underground, through an elevator shaft. They probably move slow as hell. But then again, you know what? That's the pension. That's the outflow of money. You don't want your outflow to go fast, right? You want to take it as slow as you can. Oh, sorry. It's just the speed of the elevator. We're trying to get as many people as possible. Like, what is this system, man? It's so broken. I mean, it's ridiculous.
To make changes.
Yeah, it's so very interesting there. And of course, we've seen similar things with the government, but NORAD in Colorado Springs, but that is a military operation. Do you notice the entrance to this place just off the road? Is that something that is a little bit apparent?
Yeah, the entrance is right behind me. This car coming up this road right here, just past it. You pull right in, and then there's a checkpoint. We're not allowed actually on the property, so we're on the side of the road right next to the mine right now.
All right, it's so very interesting. Nate Boy, thank you so much for your insight, your reporting there from Western PA. We appreciate it here on Live Now.
You got it. Thanks for having me.
I don't think it's showing my stuffs up there, the new things I added. Oh, no,
as
it
we
is. Okay,
reported.
chat with me.
And this is really
Very
roiling
good.
the halls there of the Southern District of New York. The acting U.S. attorney for that jurisdiction, her name, Danielle Sassoon, she resigned today. She had supported the case against Adams. She notified her office of her decision in a brief email at 2 p.m. Local time this
Now, I don't
afternoon.
know
Our colleague, Fox 5
if
New
y'all
York
know
reporter
this,
Morgan
but
Mackay has a look
AI
at this
is quite the
story.
beast.
And
I'm just
also,
kind of
remember,
afraid
some
of
of the
activating my AI.
immigration enforcement actions that Mayor Adams allegedly, as part of this
during the
quid pro
stream,
quo that Sassoon is
but I'm gonna try it out
alleging
real quick.
is cooperating, or at least committing to
I can
cooperate
take
with the
my
Trump
Fabric
administration on said immigration
system,
enforcement. Here's Morgan Mackay's
go
report.
to YouTube,
Attorney of the Southern District of New York, Danielle Sassoon,
scrub a
abruptly
video real
quitting
quick.
on Thursday instead of following the Justice Department's order to drop the criminal charges against Mayor Eric Adams. In their memo, the DOJ admitted that they did not assess the evidence in the case, but argued that the indictment distracted Adams from fully focusing on President Donald Trump's immigration policies. While the Justice Department accepted Sassoon's resignation, they also told her that the prosecutors who worked on Adams' case will be
Let's see
placed on
this.
administrative leave.
No, hold
And
on.
that Sassoon will face an internal investigation.
What's going on over here?
Honorable Senators, just to fact correct, please, a few things. Mr. Duffy didn't come from
Now,
a
if I
state
take that
job. Mr.
URL,
Duffy came
throw it
from
over here,
Deputy Chief of Staff
stream,
at DOD before he went to OOD. Big
kind of got to
difference
give
there.
it some parameters
Manager
here.
Garcia said he failed to appear. Well, the House committee would not allow agency counsel to appear with Mr. Duffy or Mr. Blair. They would not let agency counsel appear with either of them. Office of Legal Counsel determined, of course, that the exclusion of agency counsel from House proceedings is unconstitutional.
Not that
It's a
one.
pretty basic right. So what
Tools.
did they do?
It was under tools,
they took
right?
no action on the subpoenas.
No. God, I
But
just had it
now,
open.
they want you to take action on them. The managers
Text.
have been telling you all day,
No.
the House managers all day. White
AI
House is trying to
code.
hide
No.
from American people what
Setup and
witnesses had
use.
to
There we
say.
go.
They've
And then
been
it was
saying we
stream
want to bury
pattern
evidence.
extract
We want to
wisdom
hide
stream
evidence. That hypocrisy
pattern
is astounding. They've
extract
been saying,
wisdom.
let's
So let's
not
take our
forget why we
AI
are here. Well,
and see if it can parse that YouTube video
because
we're
they
watching
threw
right
due
now.
process, fundamental fairness, and our Constitution out
These
the
are the kind of
window
features I
in the
want to
House
add to
proceedings.
Ollama. Just
That's
take
why
some
we're here, because it
tinkering
started
and
in
setup.
secret
Uh-oh. Please don't crash.
bunker hearings where
Hey.
the president and his counsel weren't even allowed to participate when they're trying to impeach him. Intel and Judiciary Committees was a one-sided
House
circus.
proceedings against President Trump were
Ranking
held in
member
secret
Nunes
without the
asked to call
participation of the
witnesses. He
council.
explained why
Vice
in
President
detail.
Biden has been accused of
It was
conflict of
denied by
interest.
Manager Schiff.
Yeah.
Ranking
No one
member
talking about
Collins
this right here.
asked to call witnesses.
We be protecting
Denied
Ukraine,
by
but
Ranking
what are we
member
protecting it from, you know?
Manager Nadler.
White House counsel refused to answer whether Joe Biden
That's
sought
not
legal
how our American
advice
justice system works,
regarding this
and it's
conflict of
certainly not
interest,
how our impeachment process
considering he
is
basically
designed
pardoned
by our
everyone.
Constitution.
That's
The
already a
House took
sus.
no action on the subpoenas issued to Mr. Duffy and Mr.
Joe
Blair
Biden accused of
because
pressuring
they didn't
Ukraine
want
to
a court
fire a
to
prosecutor who
tell
was
them
investigating
that they were
Burisma.
trampling on their constitutional rights.
Barista?
So now they want this chamber to do it
What's
for
a
them.
Burisma?
Question from
Burisma.
Senator Cruz, along with
Wait.
Senators Hawley and
Are we
Graham,
talking about the same thing here?
is for both sides, the counsel for the president and the House managers.
Yeah, I guess so, because, I mean,
Yesterday,
that
Manager
spelling's
Demings
off, but then again,
refused
it's
to
a
answer whether Joe Biden sought
it's a
any
foreign
legal
company, so
advice
spelling's always going to get
concerning his
weird.
conflict of interest on Burisma,
Oh, is
corrupt
that
Iranian
Joe
Ukrainian
Biden's
company that
little
was
company
paying his
over
son,
there?
Hunter, $1 million per year. USA Today reported that when asked about
What?
it, Vice President Biden said, excuse me, quote, he hadn't spoken to his son Hunter
Exclusion
Biden
of
about his
agency from the
overseas
House
business, end
proceedings.
quote.
Yeah,
That
true.
account was contradicted by Hunter Biden, who told the New Yorker that he told his father
Lev
about
Parnas and
Burisma,
John Bolton. This
and,
guy,
quote,
this guy's
Dad
mustache
said, "I
is
hope you know
just
what
so
you're doing."
freaking.
And I said, "I
Look at
do."
this guy's mustache.
Why do Joe and Hunter Biden's
Just makes
stories
me want to like
conflict?
rip it off.
Did the House ask
Look at that
either
mustache.
one
Just
that
want to go.
question? The White House counsel goes
Who's this
first.
guy though? American businessman associated. Oh, Rudy Giuliani up in this
You heard
again.
our answer. I'm sorry,
Oh,
Chief Justice, Senators.
interesting.
Senators, you heard our answer regarding that yesterday, but it is very interesting that
Businessman.
he said he never spoke to his
They
son
all wear
about
suits to
overseas
hide
dealings.
something.
His son said different things. Joe Biden was the point man for Ukraine, investigating. At the time, Ukrainians were a corrupt company, Burisma, and Zolchevsky, its owner, an oligarch who, by all media accounts we've discussed, was extremely corrupt. Hunter Biden is paid $83,000 a month to sit on that board with no experience in energy, no experience in the Ukraine, doesn't speak the language, and we clearly know that he had a very fancy job description. And he did none
Everyone
of those
that's in
things.
government's
He
got
attended
a
one or two
fancy
board
job
meetings,
description. It's
one
how to
in
make
Monaco,
their
and then he went on a
justification for
fishing
what they do.
trip with Joe Biden's family in Norway. The entire time, Joe Biden knows that this oligarch is corrupt. Everyone knows that. There are news reports everywhere. No one will dispute that. In fact, it raised eyebrows worldwide. But the vice president, by his account, never once asked his son to leave the board. We wouldn't be sitting here if he did. He never asked his son to leave the board. Instead, he started investigating the prosecutor who was going after Burisma and this corrupt oligarch who they say was corrupt even by oligarch standards, who had fled the country,
We're in the oligarchy,
living in Monaco.
The emulation, the simulation is democracy.
Him to leave the board. He does the opposite. In 2015, what does he do?
The underlying
we know by reports he has
fact
close
is
contact with President Poroshenko.
an oligarchy.
He travels to Ukraine twice.
Whoever's got the money has the power.
He links the aid to the firing.
It's not like we don't already know that.
Same thing in 2016 at a White House meeting. Links the aid to the firing of the prosecutor. Calls him 4 times in the 8 days up to leading to the prosecutor. The prosecutor investigating Hunter Biden, yet he never says that. All cases closed.
Look,
days before Biden leaves office, he jokes to Poroshenko.
So, I mean, it's going to be said at some point, but my AI went through the whole thing. So what you're looking at here is basically my AI taking that 15-minute video and throwing together a little summary. This, number 14. Hillary Clinton. Look, I don't care about politics. I don't care about individual names. Intelligent people talk about ideas. Mediocre people talk about people. And mediocre people talk about events. And dumb people talk about people. So I don't care if it's Hillary Clinton or whoever be doing this, but if you have for any case scenario to have an empathy to enemies, you're basically giving them reign to do whatever they want to you. Like, we live in a reality of sort, right? A bear is gonna eat what it's gotta eat to survive. It's just basic nature. Humans, not so basic, but in the end, it's the same concept. You know, if someone's threatening your pile of cash, then they're gonna do something or whatever they can to keep that pile of cash. That's their food. That's how they get their food in our world of monetary exchange. So it's like, yeah, I want to have that sort of sympathy towards people, respect and empathy to enemies. But in the end, it's almost a case of like, you do that with the wrong people, it's just not going to bode well. Never give empathy to anyone that doesn't give it back. That's really the case scenario. That's why I kind of think about the tariffs right now that Trump wants to impose. And it makes perfect sense. If they charge us money to sell our product somewhere else, then we're going to charge money for them to sell our products here. It's just logic, man. It's just absolute logic. Unless you're invested in them having less costs, which in this case, I mean, we're talking about Biden and this company called Burisma. What is even that? Like an oil company? Energy company. Ukrainian. Holding company based in Kiev for a group of energy exploration or production companies. So we know for a fact the US be doing some stuff for energy all the time. It's just a natural form. Our whole system runs on energy. The truck brings food to your store so you can purchase it. It takes that energy. And the more expensive that truck gets because of gas and energy, the more expensive your food's going to get. So there's this scrambling, this constant scrambling of trying to get energy from here and there. We put money into this energy efficiency process of things, but it's not even scratching the surface. It just makes you kind of think like, what are we spending this money on? Like, okay, Tesla, fine, I get it, electric cars. But where's that car charging from, right? Like the best case scenario is if we have like a solar panel system. Yeah, it's gonna suck during the night, but we sleeping during the night. Get a battery, charge it up, then you can work it through. But we're still charging our Teslas from power streams coming from coal, coming from oil. It's delusional to think that that was the answer in the first place. Electric cars. It's a start to an answer. As long as we can figure out if one electric car can save more energy than a combustion engine car, then we can argue, all right, it is actually more efficient. But in all due respect of things, if it's not, if it takes more energy to transfer it over a cable to charge your car versus just transferring that oil from source to um, car, gas station, wherever you're getting your gas from, then we might as well go back to oil. Like it's more effective. There's less of a waste. But unless we just really do, I feel like all that money we've been spending on electric cars, we should have been spending on solar panels. Um, put a solar panel on every person's house. That's it. We all got roofs. We all got roofs. It's always getting heat up by the sun. Not only are you gonna convert that energy to electricity, you're actually gonna reduce the heat in your house too at the same time, because a percentage of that heat gets converted to energy. Straightforward. So like, it makes you just kind of wonder, all that money into electric cars is just another vehicle for using energy. Why did we not try to find a better way that we can produce energy versus using it? We can worry about the use later, you know? It's just such a weird thing, man. Such a weird thing.
That he may have to call him every couple weeks to check in. Hunter Biden stays on that board.
Okay, so kind of done with this video. Let's see what else we got.
Then we hear the video of Joe Biden bragging about firing the prosecutor, linking it to aid. Then we have the 6-minute phone call.
Mr. Chief Justice.
We got some live happening over here.
Oh, I'm sorry. The House managers have 2.5 minutes.
Let's throw it up on the little screen over here.
Google has recognized that. Pretty much every other outlet in this room has recognized that body of water as the Gulf of America, and it's very important.
Okay, this is just weird, honestly.
We get that right, not just for people here at home, but also
we really
for the rest
gonna
of the world. Sure.
pick up fists for the name of a freaking body of water?
Coming at the same time as the president is now announcing negotiations.
There's so much more important things. So much more important thing. I guess it's a case for patriotism. Fine, I get it, I suppose. But come on.
I was not involved
Come on.
in those discussions.
Don't mess it
so
in.
I can't comment on whether that came up or not. What I can say is that this was a very good deal for the United States of America and for the rest of the world. As you know, we have confirmed that the Russian who will be returning home very soon, Alexander Vinnik, was a
That was actually, yeah,
crypto
true.
criminal. And as part of this exchange, he has forfeited more than $100 million that he obtained in that illegal crime. And in exchange, of course, we got Mark Fogel, who is a middle school teacher who kissed the American soil, but kissed the ground last night when he returned to the United States of America. It was a great deal
Let's
and a great
get a
day for our
summary of
country,
this guy
and I
right
think
here.
everybody, regardless of political affiliation, agrees with that.
This is actually what I want to program into my bot next. The ability
NATO
for me to
parameters,
just
I'm
scan
not
through
sure.
these
You have to
streams
ask
and
Secretary Hegseth in the Defense Department on that, since he announced them.
yeah,
Jackie.
let's do that. Let me do that.
Just to be clear, so when we're listening for a shift in position on
Project
US policy,
manager.
should we only listen to the president and maybe not the Secretary of Defense?
Let's get over here.
Would represent a shift in U.S. policy.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I speak for the President of the United States.
Ah, this was someone's request.
And I
They
will
wanted
let
me to
him
program
discuss
a keylogger, or not a keylogger,
Next
automatic key
Sure,
system,
I'm glad you asked. It speaks to President
auto
Trump's
hit,
deal-making
if you want to
ability,
call it, auto
and we can
key.
confirm the safe release of
Sure, I'll
one
save it.
American
You
and
clean
two
up a little
individuals
bit.
from Belarus, one of whom worked for Radio Liberty. Out of respect for the privacy of these individuals, their request, we have no further details to announce on their identities, but we can confirm that one American was released today, and it's a remarkable victory on the heels of
There we
Mark
go.
Fogel returning to America last week.
Let's see, we got some classes over here. I need to organize this stuff
At
though.
this moment. I don't have details on that at this moment. I do know that these three individuals have been released and are on their way home to their respective countries. Ouija.
Gotta analyze CSV. It's not getting that big of a file just yet, but it is worth it later. I mean, that is a pretty big file. How many lines we got going?
I will allow the president to divulge any red lines that he may set. But I
Half a
think
K
as deals in the past have come to fruition,
for an
the president
AI
has proven
application.
one of the things that makes him a very effective negotiator is not revealing what he's anticipating from both sides, but he is at the forefront of these negotiations in addition to the very qualified
Remove some extra lines,
with
or
speaking to both President Putin and President
no, I'm just gonna add an extra line here.
A meeting with the President of the United States offers any foreign leader credibility.
Key press event. Am I using this one? Because I got a function key press, right? Dang, hold
I was
up.
already asked this question.
I think I'm using the outside function.
Of that, but we can certainly get you an answer on that. I'll check in with the NSC.
Event key press filter.
Thanks, Caroline. It's clear that this administration is dedicated to both truth
I gotta readjust and see where that's coming from, but I'm pretty sure I'm using the outside function, so I can probably... I mean, I guess the biggest thing I can do is remove this key press listener, save, run it,
in regards to the assassination
and see if it still functions, yeah?
President Trump signed that executive order directing the respective agencies to do it. I know that that process continues.
Hey,
It is ongoing.
Llama.
He's committed to
Just testing.
and the declassification of these very important files that I think
Yeah, it
many
looks like the
Americans
key's
are not
still...
only interested in learning about, but also have the right to know about. As for the two heinous assassination attempts on the president's life, he's spoken to this publicly. I've spoken to him about it privately. And,
okay,
as
that's
he said
fine.
publicly to all of you, he feels,
I'm okay if it's local in the class itself. Then I can remove this guy, clean it up a little bit, huh?
Tried to kill him, tried to take his life.
Ooh,
and so,
that's ugly.
If and when we get that information, I'll leave it up to the president to decide whether or not he would like to reveal it. But I believe in the effort of transparency that we've seen consistently from this president, he certainly will. Daniel.
Thanks, Caroline. I wanted to ask you about
there, let's remove that. Restart.
Hotels. Secretary Kristi Noem just put out a statement saying that she's clawed back the full payment that FEMA activists.
Am I using both? That's odd. I guess I have to have an external one. Alright, so I'm not removing anything. Why break stuff, huh? Hey Llama, testing. A query.
They will be held accountable. The president is signing executive orders daily, and he expects all officials across the administration, regardless if they are a political appointee
That's
or
the
if
missing
they are
part.
a career bureaucrat, to adhere to the will of the American
Alright, there we
people.
go. So it's working.
77 million Americans who re-elected President
It's a
Trump.
PyQt 6, I think.
He is focused every day on
PySide 6.
his administration's goals in sending $59 million to a migrant hotel to house illegal immigrants when there are still people in North Carolina and California who have not received FEMA funding is not
Oh,
something
yeah,
that this
it's a 6,
administration is
but
going
close
to
enough.
tolerate. Deanna.
Thank you so much, Caroline. Last
Look at that,
year,
though.
one
It's just
more
insane to think that you
I'm New
haven't
York, New York City Comptroller
the
Brad
way I'm trying to build
Andrews
this
was
too. Because
invoked to
I
climb
know we
back
got so
$50
many
million
chat bots, so
that
many.
was
I'm gonna
intended for New York
communicate with the
City to
bot
get
and
FEMA
get
funding.
it to do stuff
Wondering
for
if
me.
you've heard about that
But
figure, if
like,
that figure is accurate, and why that money
it
was scaled
really
back.
I have not
ends there.
heard about that figure. Doge is moving
You
very
can just
quickly, but I
basically
can get
talk
the
to it.
receipts and gladly
So if
send
you
them to
have
you.
a
I know that the
model in the
story is
background,
likely of great interest.
running on a Ollama server, then you basically have a co-pilot. You have a intelligent AI that, for the fact that it can communicate, sure, fine, you can talk to it. But given the right guidance, it can be a user in an application. So this is kind of what's happening, or what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to create this application not only to be um, like a chat bot, but I can give it a file. Right now it's only CSV files. I got to figure out how to play around with some of these file inputs. Let me see. How can I give it image files? How can you analyze image files in text? I think there's like a conversion that I can do of the image file to some sort of bit encoding, and then it should be able to read the bit encoding. Analyzing is fascinating topic, typically accomplished through optical character recognition. Takes an image of text or handwriting as an input and outputs the corresponding text as output. There are various libraries to perform, such as Tesseract, OpenCV, and Google Cloud. However, it's essential to note that OCR can only recognize text in images. Right. I can maybe make it recognize text in images, but I'd have to convert it using OCR. So it depends on the function being useful or not. TensorFlow, very familiar with that sucker. PyTorch, very familiar with that sucker. If you have any questions or any clarifications on a specific aspect, don't hesitate to ask. So at least text files can be done, right? I can probably also give it a text document. It doesn't have to necessarily be a CSV, but right now it's only optimized for CSVs. I should probably get it to detect whether a CSV is being used or if a regular text file is being used. But then documents are going to be tricky. Docx and all that crap that you have in Word. Can Python convert docx to text? That's really the basic concept here, is take all these complicated formats and break it down to text. And then with text, it's literally in the same format as us speaking to it. It just inputs that text as a file. It recognizes it as a file and then just reads it, and you give it the details behind, or it gives you the details behind the file. Okay, so we got a PDF to text. That's a function I can do. So I'll add that to the, let me do that. Let me make a list of things I got to add to this program. Read PDF files, CSV files. And this is the case for efficiency. Yeah, I can try and basically make a whole set of code to read a docx file or a PDF file, but then PDF's got images in it. So then how do you do that? Well, you identify there's an image in it, and then you use another library to read the image. Or if this PDF file or PDF to text file can essentially just convert everything in a document using probably OCR because it's already built into the package. And then I just have to use one package instead of 2 or 3 or 4 to get everything to work together. That's the case for efficiency. Use less, do more. Um, Eventually, I'm a little hesitant, and I can do this, but I want it to give this particular AI the ability to control the computer, look through file systems, identify duplicates, for instance. So just giving it the basic ability to go through files on a system without the functionality of comparing files in the Python code. It'll be the brain, the AI doing the comparison. So all I got to give it is eyes in the file system, and then it can take a look at a directory, spot 2 of the same names, maybe 2 of the same sizes, and then say, hey, I found a duplicate here. And then boom, there's a functionality added to it. My hesitation, as paranoia goes, that means I gotta give the AI ability to look at my files, man. That's a little scary. Is it gonna do everything all the time? Is it gonna do it only when I tell it to? Is it gonna activate it on its own? That's where complications can arise. Um, so import PDF to text. That's one case. The other case, do I want to stream that? Let me see if I stream or don't stream. Oh, took a bit of time just to get the basics of it set up. But if I go back here, let's say we do the same exact thing, but not stream. Just straight up pattern extract wisdom. Oh, I forgot to even read the next one. In this conversation, Mitch, Wexler, and Speaker discuss various economic issues affecting America, such as inflation, deficit spending. Yeah, inflation's going back up. It's very, very odd to consider there. That we still got an increase in inflation in the background of everything happening with the markets. Okay, so it's not streaming, it's actually loading quite some time. Now, I don't have a stream capability on the AI just yet. That's going to be a little bit more advanced. Instead of saving everything into one. Yeah, there we go. And co-hosts are discussing various economic political issues, including the potential impact of Jerome Powell's comments on mortgage and insurance, the investigation into fraud within government agencies, and the role of Elon Musk in saving taxpayer money. They express concern about potential impact of banks agency, banks agency, banks and insurance companies pulling out of high-risk areas such as coastal regions. It doesn't even matter. It's not even the case for Doge doing that. Like, so many, like State Farm pulled out of California, like a month before the fires happened. Like, that's suspicious on its own, you know what I mean? Uh, on homeowners and state and local governments, they also discussed the need for credit tightening to minimize the pain caused by the housing bubble and wealth transfer. Mitch argues that the only thing that matters is the median household income, and that every mechanism used to try and lever up the problem creates a worse problem. Yeah, I mean, every time we print money, it just gets worse and worse. How about that? It is what it is, ain't it? You try to pay a credit card with a credit card, you think that's gonna work? That's basically what the government's doing, just saying. It's pretty messed up. And then we're over here trying to foot the bill with all the taxes we gotta pay. And the taxes I had to pay on that house. I think it came up to like $40,000. And now I'm seeing, oh, yeah, that money probably went to Politico. That money probably went to New York Times. What was the other one? Department of Defense was for, what was that? What did they give money to? Uh, Money to news media. God, where did I see that? U.S. defense contract, inaccurate represented. Oh yeah, Reuters. Even Reuters. Yeah. They gave it to Reuters, and here's Reuters saying, "Oh, but the contract they gave us is, unaccurately represented." Are you kidding me? Ah. Thomson Reuters said on Thursday its business with the U.S. Department of Defense was inaccurately represented in response to accusations on social media by Elon Musk and President Trump that the company played a role in large-scale social deception. Are you doing it right now? Huh? Huh? Are you doing that right now? Kenneth? Kenneth Lee? Are you doing that right now, buddy? Mr. Reuters? Mm-hmm. The contract in question was a 4-year, $9 million award beginning in 2018 during Trump's first and ending in 2022. The contract in question was a 4-year, $9 million award. They gave $9 million bucks to Reuters. Hello. There's where my uh taxes went. Fucking ridiculous, man. Absolutely ridiculous. So, Department of Defense and the division of Toronto-based content and technology company Thomson's Reuters Special Services. Special. What's so special about these services, sir? The contract was intended to protect the U.S. government from social engineering. Oh. Oh, really? To protect from social engineering. By doing what? Doing it first? Doing social engineering first? I mean, Reuters is essentially a company that's social media. It provides information that we hope to trust in. So, what, fool them first before they fool you, sort of social engineering? Is that what we're going for here? Which is a form of cyber threat in which people are tricked into divulging sensitive information. Uh-huh. Sure. Military, which funded a contract, said Thomson Reuters Services was completely selected to serve as the evaluator to test defensive tools. They, Thomson Reuters, assessed the effectiveness of our defense tools. Trump demanded that Reuters repay the U.S. government in Truth Social posts. Hey, yeah, give it back and let's put it to something like North Carolina after their flood. I want to help Cali too, but my God. I can't. I'm so torn on that, on the Cali situation. That was controllable. That was controllable. The problem with Cali is the water is owned by that stupid palm company. Claims about who owns California's water are spreading online. Here's what to know. Here's what to know. Accusation that one wealthy couple, the Resnicks, that's the ones, have been hoarding water needed to fight South Carolina's fires. Let's see what you say. What are we at? CBS News? Oh, CBS. Let's see what you say. Stuart Linda Resnick, owner of the Wonderful Company, who wonderfully burning down California. Founded in 1979, their portfolio includes wonderful pistachios, pomegranate, Halo tangerines, agricultural businesses, Fiji water. However, it is the next large state in current water bank. Now, this was a reservoir 150 miles from Los Angeles, and it's garnered negative attention in recent weeks. Yeah, because they got the water up in there. Can hold nearly 500 billion gallons of water. The Resnick own 57% of the rights to that water. How can you own? Welcome to Earth. Earth, the planet with a lot of crap on it. I mean, owning land is one thing. Owning the water? What, because you put money to someone? You gave money to someone that potentially manages the water, and the guy's like, yeah, okay, you gave me the money, so you can take 57%. See what money does, man? Like, money can be used for so many good things. So many good things. But maybe that 9 bill can do something. Give the money back now. I like that fact. TRSS provided software and information services to the U.S. government agencies across successive administrations for decades. You guys aren't a software company. TRSS, Thomson Reuters, Special Services. You're not a software company. You're a media company. What are you providing? I'm so confused at this. What are you trying to do, CBS? DARPA told Reuters and the ASAD program, which ended in 2022, to develop tools to protect people from social engineering. Can I see those tools? That sounds great. Because honestly, unless it's a tool to put it in their brain so they can be immune to social engineering, I don't see what kind of tool is going to help here. I mean, granted, you write some articles that are going to prevent social engineering. You're going to is everyone going to read that crap? Especially now when we see that there's some weird ass stuff happening. Like, what are we talking about here? It's just such a weird situation. What kind of tool, man? What kind of tool costs $9 billion? Right? Defense Department, which is award. I mean, I can't wait until Doge goes into the Pentagon, Department of Defense. Heck, even the educational system. You know how hard it is to be a good educator in this system? Like, all right, you want to teach some classes? You want to teach maybe kindergarten, colors, basic math? Like, all the requirements for teaching in kindergarten are not basic social skills and the ability to take care of kids. None of those are skills involved. You got to be some member of some board, National Educators Commission or some whatever agency. You got to probably pay some money to make some sort of certification. For what? For cutting paper into nice shapes so you can teach them what the shapes are? Like kindergarten, elementary school. Like, there's so much actual bureaucracy. It's really hard to even be a teacher in this system. Hell, that, I have about 12, 15 years of experience teaching kids from ages 10 to 25. Just because I didn't muster the bachelor's degree in computer science, because I had to work 60 hours a week plus do computer science major stuff. And I was doing pretty decent until some stupid test, that only literally statistically 5 to 10% of students passed. That test doesn't exist anymore. Look at that. That was a gateway test. And I was not able to get my freaking bachelor's for a test that doesn't even exist anymore. Like, the system is so messy. This is why people are like so frustrated. This is why I'm frustrated as an educator. I just want to teach people, man. I just want to make you better than yesterday, even a little bit. Any little detail, math, programming, whatever. That's my goal. If we learn something today that we didn't know yesterday, perfect. We keep doing that over and over on a daily basis. Amazing. I actually have a student that, one of my few students that do still programming and wanted to be a game developer. We have a whole conversation. I don't even charge the kid. I just want to see him succeed. You know what I mean? Like he used to be a student where, yeah, he would, I would charge him for our sessions. And do you want to test the Unity game for full experience? I set it up in zip with IP port. Look at this kid. Just like a year ago, he was still like learning basic Unity. Now he's talking about IP ports and networking. That's amazing to me. That's absolutely fantastic. Like game design. Game design is only like so much of like creating a system of characters working around, playing around, and doing some stuff. Uh, when was that? Oh, yesterday. But he went through so much stuff. He went through so much stuff, and when we finally got it to work to connect to each other, that's sick. That's so cool. It just there's no you got it, man. Nice job. It takes a lot of work, man. Yes, and money. Yeah. We had to go through a process. Like he can technically still do that. Oh, it did it. I'm in. You blew? Yeah. Wow. Like we had to essentially he had to connect the game. He's kind of has like a little basic shell for it. And he wanted to figure out a way to connect people to his game, right? We originally learned just basics of Unity 2D programming, just creating a basic Unity 2D game. He did a lot of the legwork. I gave him the kind of push forward, got him to understand how the interface works. I'm not a game developer, but I do recognize that the majority of work is based on the interface, understanding what you're working in and the capabilities, and understanding what the limitations are. Because networking is not really so much a Unity thing. I mean, you can do networking in a game through like a Steam cloud server where people connect through Steam, but then you got to pay Steam the money. Someone's got to get money for something, managing servers. Um, so he's been doing this for at least, I can't even remember how long we've been testing this game out for. It's got to be at least like 3 months. And at one point, he was so discouraged, man. You don't want Ubuntu server since your application is in Windows. So this is what I used to do to host my Minecraft server is to create a virtual network, a virtual operating system. And I didn't need to have any graphics associated with it because simply it was like a text window, the Java jar file for your Minecraft server. So I just needed a way that I can throw this online in a server somewhere in the middle, some physical location that can connect East um, Europe with West Americas. So I picked that United Kingdom space right before that optical Atlantic. Is it Atlantic or Pacific cable? I don't even know my oceans, man. Whatever that transatlantic. It's got to be the transatlantic, right? Yeah, there you go. So there's like a cable that goes straight from the UK all the way down to I think it was New York or some spot that it gets the exit point. So that giant cable, that that's amazing though, isn't it? We got a giant cable between the UK and the United States. That's absolutely one of the main, like the biggest freaking accomplishments in humanity is connecting to totally different places so we can have instant communication. That's absolutely mind blowing that that exists. So instead of like hosting my server in like Germany or Poland or Norway, which means there's more cables in between, I live between Florida and Bulgaria. So I wanted to have like a server somewhere in the middle so wherever I am, I can have a decent connection to it. And UK was kind of the best choice since we don't have anything straight down the middle. There's no like server anywhere down here, which that'd be interesting. Someone creates a server and then just drops it in the ocean, so it's like right there in the middle. Man, not maintenance on that thing would be horrible. But if I hosted the Minecraft server in Florida, all my friends in Europe would have like 200 ping. If I hosted it in like Ukraine or Belarus or Finland, then everyone in Florida would have 200 ping. See what I'm saying? So somewhere in the middle, UK was good. New York probably was another good choice, but it's way more expensive there, which basically lets me connect directly to this cable. And that cable is optical, so the actual transfer rate through is pretty quick. It's just that the rest of the connections from New York to whatever other point server to another server to another server, and then it gets a bit laggy having to transfer those data packets. Um, so he went through the same thing. He tried to make his own game. He did. He got it set. It's pretty basic, but he's going to be working on top of it, which is pretty cool. But he wanted to make functionality for it. He needs motivation to keep essentially going, to get through all the the headaches. Because I told him, man, you're entering networking. This isn't just game design. Now you got to know what IP addresses are, how they work, how you can connect with through different routers and servers and strategically get a location somewhere that's in the middle of what you're trying to do. And we went through it. I just gave him some screenshots. I was like, hey, here's some info for IPs, man. He kept giving me the local. I don't know if y'all know. Any of these that you see on the list is here. These are local IP addresses to your home. So if you're trying to give someone an IP number of any of these, it's not going to work out. Those are local numbers that can only be accessed through the household, through your wireless local router. So if I was in his house, yeah, I'd be able to access it. But we're not in the same geographical location, so that ain't gonna work. So just gave him all the details and he put the work, man. He read through the stuff, he got the informations. I told him, hey, this is a gateway mask, not an IP. This is a local, and then this one's good, you know? Yeah, so we went through so much stuff. But that's what I try to do, and that's what a teacher does, man. Even if you get paid or not, the satisfaction comes with helping others achieve what they're envisioned to see. Not everyone can envision something big, but those that do envision something, stand behind them. But then you got, what is that? Department of Education Agency or something? DEA? Department of Education. Oh, dang, that was a thing. I was researching the certification process for being an educator. It's horrible. Like, you're trying to teach algebra and basic math. They don't test you on whether you can teach. They test you on all the other semantics. Sure, maybe classroom processes will be useful, but just being a teacher over time, you learn those processes without having to go to college. Heck, having a bachelor's degree has no actual support for being a teacher. Maybe if you're going to be teaching the bachelor's degree itself, for sure. Like if you're going to teach computer science all the way through and through, you probably should have a bachelor's degree in computer science. But if you're going to be teaching algebra, you just have to have the class mastered. You don't need all those extra bells and whistles. It's basically a waste. It's a bureaucracy. It's a piece of paper that only gateways people, certain people, into being teachers. And the sad part is, it's not the right people. Yeah, it's some decently working people, but because you're a hard worker doesn't mean your character is good enough to be an attention grabber. Doesn't mean you can translate information into simpler terms. Being a teacher is just so much more than the information you have in your head. I mean, that's what professors and universities are like very, very dry on information on character. They spend all that time learning the material. They should be using that material. They should be doing something productive with that material, but they end up teaching the material. And it's like, all right, are you entertaining to teach? You got a character? Can you explain to me this to translate it from college level to like 15-year-old? I mean, AI can do this kind of stuff better than professors can, you know? Ah, so much bureaucracy. So I for sure can't wait. Let's see what's going on over here.
I see stepping to the podium. I see stepping to the podium right now, Pam Bondi. So we're going to switch right back to that event in our nation's capital. Let's listen in.
And I'm sorry we were a little bit late. I was in the West Wing swearing in Tulsi Gabbard, and so I just came straight back here. So thanks for being patient with us with the delay. We're here today because we have filed charges against the state of New York. We have filed charges against Kathy Hochul. We have filed charges against Letitia James and Mark Schroeder, who is with DMV.
Very good.
This is a new DOJ, and we are taking steps to protect Americans, American citizens, and angel moms, like the mom standing right behind me, who you're going to hear from in a moment. New York has chosen to prioritize illegal aliens over American citizens. It stops today. As you know, we sued Illinois, and New York didn't listen. So now you're next. Millions of illegal aliens with violent records have flooded into our communities, bringing violence and deadly drugs with them. With me today, I'm so proud to be joined by Tammy Nobles. Tammy is an angel mom. Her beautiful daughter, Kayla Hamilton, was murdered by an MS-13 member in 2022. Kayla had just turned 20 years old, and she was raped and murdered by someone who should not have been in our country.
Yeah, man.
Yet,
that's fucking sad.
He was released.
Absolutely.
Flown to Maryland, where he committed this violent murder. I just want you to hear from, Tammy. Tammy represents not only herself and her family, but all of the great angel moms around this country who have suffered because of what the Biden administration did, and it is over.
Thank you for having me here today and being able to share Kayla's story. Her murderer was able to come across the border knowing that he was flagged as an MS-13 gang member, and he had a criminal record in 2020 in El Salvador for illicit gang activity. He came over as an unoccupied alien child, saying that he was afraid of gang activity in his country. Health and Human Services called him a nice boy, and he showed age-appropriate behavior. That fell so wrong when he murdered my daughter. He ended up in Maryland, where he was able to rent a room in the same mobile home as her. We thought it was a legit company that were renting out these rooms. But it turned out that it was another illegal immigrant who owned these mobile homes. And he knew Walter from El Salvador. He knew him and allowed him to rent a room with my child. Kayla just turned 20 years old 3 days before she was murdered. Her murderer was only living there for 5 days before he viciously strangled her, raped her, and left her on the floor like trash and robbed her of $6. I have been sharing her story for over 2.5 years to bring change, because this should.
That's pretty fucked up, dude. It's so bad.
Should have not have ever happened to Kayla, and it shouldn't be happening to other families being hurt by the border. Homeland Security did not do their jobs. They did not check his background. You know, they did say that he was processed. So if they processed him, they knew that he was a gang member and still allowed him here. Health and Human Services did not verify the sponsor and allowed him to go with a sponsor that they don't even know if it was his cousin or his aunt. And he was able to leave the sponsor's house to go live wherever he wanted. And I am going to continue sharing Kayla's story to help save others and to bring awareness of what was happening under the Biden-Harris administration. And I'm so thankful for Pam having me here today. And I'm so thankful for the opportunities I got from Trump and any other platform, you know, people who allowed me to share her story, because this is going to end. No other parent should suffer by having their child murdered by somebody that shouldn't be here.
Oh my
and
God.
I'm gonna continue, you know, sharing it, and for Kayla, you know, and also for others. Thank you.
And it's my understanding that he also admitted to other murders, correct? Multiple murders.
He wrote a letter, and it was intercepted in jail that he
There's so
committed
much
4
mental
murders
illness in
and
this
2
world
rapes.
right now.
And that's who we were letting walk into our country. And that's why President Trump has directed this to stop. And if you don't comply with federal law, we will hold you accountable. We did it to Illinois.
Oh, man, I'm pushing
Strike
my
1.
graphics
Strike
card
2
to
is
the
New York.
max.
And if you are a state not complying with federal law, you're
Let me see if I
next.
gotta use
Get
my other
ready.
computer.
And the great men and women of law enforcement are standing behind me today. We have FBI, DEA, ATF agents. They put their lives on the line every single day to protect us. And what New York has, they have green light laws, meaning they're giving a green light to any illegal alien in New York, where law enforcement officers cannot check their identity if they pull them over. Law enforcement officers do not have access to their background. And if these great men and women pull over someone and don't have access to their background, they have no idea who they're dealing with. And it puts their lives on the line every single day. Violent criminals, gang members, drug traffickers, human smugglers will no longer terrorize the American people. And that is why we are here today. You will be held accountable if you do not follow federal law. It's over, it ends, and we're coming after you.
Honestly, that's a good thing.
We have time for a few questions. David Spunt with Fox News.
Madam Attorney General, thank you and welcome to the Justice Department.
Thank you.
I have a quick on-topic and a quick off-topic question. On topic, in your executive order, or in your orders on the first day you were here, you talked about working with the Justice Department, or these sanctuary cities, as you say, will be punished. Today you're putting people on notice. Right now, we're just lawsuits. Is this going to go further? What kind of punishment are we talking about? Is there any grounds to charge individuals, charge politicians? How far is this going to go?
Well, we're going to see what they do next, David. We have sued them all. We've personally sued the governor, the Attorney General, Letitia James, and Mark Schroeder with DMV because he has the green light laws. So what they have to do, they have to start complying with federal law. If they don't, we're going to appeal it, and we will win. They have to comply with federal law. Did you have a second question?
I did have a second off-topic question in this regard to the judiciary. Today, Elon Musk, who has enormous influence in the Trump administration, posted on X, quote, there needs to be an immediate wave of judicial impeachments, not just one. As the Attorney General of the United States, how do you respond to that? Shouldn't the process work out in the courts before we talk about judicial impeachments? I mean, these are just TROs now at this time. Shouldn't these just play out?
Yeah, I haven't seen Elon Musk tweet. He is a friend of mine. He is a great man. I think he's very frustrated with what's happening in our federal government. You know, at USAID alone, they're giving out billions of dollars that should not be distributed. We're going to back him up. You know, we work our whole lives in this country, and we all pay taxes in this country. And for people to find out that $2 million is going to Guatemala for sex changes is outrageous. And we're going to back up Elon Musk every way we can. That includes lawsuits against these people who are doing that, and we will be successful.
Do you have concerns about judicial impeachments?
That's not going to happen now. We're going to look at everything. We're going to follow the law right now. We're going to follow the process. These are federal judges with lifetime appointments, but they will be struck down ultimately by the Supreme Court of the United States if the appellate courts don't follow the law as well.
Ollama, with the APA.
Hi. Thanks so much. I also have an on-topic and an off-topic.
Sure.
First of all, can you just briefly walk us through what the legal claims are you're making in this lawsuit?
Yeah, absolutely. So the green light laws are that this is what the green light law says. It's a green light to illegal immigration, which says they can comply. That law is unconstitutional. They can't do that. And what they've done is they have a tip-off provision that requires New York's DMV commissioner to promptly inform any illegal alien when a federal immigration agency has requested their information. So think about the men and women in law enforcement behind me. That's basically, that's not basic. It's tipping off an illegal alien, and it's unconstitutional. And that's why we filed this lawsuit. And that's why we charge Mark Schroeder, too, because he runs DMV. Oh, I'm sorry, you had a second question.
Yeah, my off-topic question. I wanted to ask about Mayor Eric
Yes.
Adams.
It's a little messy.
As of at least a few moments ago, SDNY still has not dropped that case. Have you or other DOJ leadership spoken to the acting U.S. attorney and SDNY since the memo was sent earlier this week? And what will you do if she refuses to drop the case?
I have not spoken to her. I know our acting DAG, Emil Bove, has spoken to her, and Chad Mizell may have spoken to her, but that case should be dropped. It was done at the directive of Emil, so that case should be dropped. I did not know that it had not been dropped yet, but I will certainly look into that.
Reagan, Daily Caller.
Hi, thank you.
How are you?
Tom Homan suggested this week that someone from within the FBI may be leaking information about the ICE raids and that such could be putting officers' lives at risk. Has the DOJ gotten any closer to determining if these leaks are coming from within the FBI? And what will the consequences be if they can identify the leakers from the FBI?
Excuse me. Well, first, I can't talk about anything that is ongoing, and that is ongoing. And it's really for the similar reasons of what I said earlier. The great men and women in law enforcement standing behind me today, they must be protected. And anytime anyone leaks or tips off anything regarding a pending investigation, that jeopardizes lives. You're telling a bad guy what's about to happen. It could jeopardize the lives of all the men and women in law enforcement.
So bad,
we will not stand for it. We will find you. We're going to investigate it, no matter what agency it came from. We don't know for certain. We have an open investigation, so I can't talk about it in detail, but we will do everything in our power to hold you accountable, and it is a crime. And you will be prosecuted when we find you.
You shouldn't be telling the freaking...
One more, Ollama Austin, Newsmax.
Hi. Madam Attorney General, thank you so much for your time. I was also interested in hearing specifically what the interactions have been like with Mayor Adams.
Criminals that
And
they're
I know
about
he
to
has a
get,
little bit
like,
of a different tone
discovered.
than some of the
It's
other
messed up,
Democrats out of the Empire State. And then also Denver Mayor Mike Johnston, because before the President Trump went back into office, he had issued some words about a potential standoff and then walked that back. So I was curious to see what things have been like out of New York City and Denver officials.
Yeah, well, we're hoping that in New York, Mayor Adams is going to cooperate with us with the sanctuary cities and the illegal aliens. And has the mayor in Colorado been cooperating? Do we know? I believe he might have now. Yeah, I believe Colorado is now cooperating. That's what we want. We don't want to sue you. We don't want to prosecute people. We want people to comply with the law. This is very simple. An MS-13 member murdered her daughter. That's happening throughout this country. We have one angel mom is too many. And we have angel moms throughout this country who should not be going through this. Comply with the law. This is the last thing we want to be doing. We want to be out there, all of us, fighting violent crime. Yet we're fighting illegal aliens, and that ends, and it's going to end today.
That's all we have time for, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Right? Okay.
Alrighty then.
Go ahead, please. Go ahead. Go ahead, please.
Mr. President, you are meeting Prime Minister Modi of India this afternoon. What kind of trade and tariff relations you would like to have with India, and what's the vision for India? US?
Yeah, India traditionally is the highest, just about the highest tariffed country. They charge more tariffs than any other country. And I mean, we'll be talking about that. But again, whatever they charge us, we're charging them. So it works out very well. It's very.
That's it.
It's a beautiful, simple system.
You charge us money
and
for
we don't have to worry about, gee, we're charging too much or too little.
It ain't that crazy.
But traditionally, India is right at the top of the pack, pretty much. There are a couple of smaller countries that are actually more. But India is a very, they charge tremendous tariffs. I remember when Harley Davidson couldn't sell their motorbikes into India because of the fact that India, the tax was so high, the tariff was so high. And Harley was forced to build. I guess they built. I don't know. That was a while ago. But I think
how
they built
can we have such an open
in India in order
country
to
to
avoid paying
others?
the tariffs. And that's what people can do with us. They can build a factory here.
They're just going to close themselves off
here,
to everything.
And that includes the medical. That includes cars. That includes chips and semiconductors. That includes everything. If you build here, you have no tariffs whatsoever. And I think that's what's going to happen. I think our country is going to be flooded with jobs.
What should consumers expect? Are prices going to go up short-term,
well,
long-term?
Not necessarily. I mean, not necessarily, but I'll tell you what will go up is jobs. The jobs will go up tremendously. We're going to have great jobs for everybody. This is something that should have been done many years ago. China did it. I mean, China did it at a level that probably nobody's ever seen before. If you manufactured a car, you couldn't send it into China. The tariff was so high. So everybody went and they built in China. It was no big secret. So we're going to see, but it's going to mean tremendous amounts of jobs. And ultimately, prices will stay the same, go down. But we're going to have a very dynamic country.
But if prices go up, Mr. President, because of these tariffs, who do you think voters should hold responsible?
Oh, I think what's going to go up is jobs are going to go up. And prices could go up somewhat short term, but prices will also go down. And I think the farmers are going to be helped by this very much because product is being dumped into our country and our farmers are getting hurt very badly by the last administration.
Man,
the
we've
last
hurt our
administration
farmers. There
hated our
goes our
farmers,
food.
like at a level that
That's
I've
what
never
I'm
seen
saying. Then we
before.
all got to learn how to
I think
farm.
our farmers are going to be helped. Jobs are going to be helped, but our farmers are going to be helped. Our manufacturers are going to be helped.
It's
and again,
so basic.
If somebody wants to come in, including the car companies,
Back
if
to
they
the
want to come
basics,
in
man.
and
Food,
build car plants,
energy.
they'll do it without tariffs, and therefore prices
The funny
won't go
thing
up.
is,
There could be some short-term.
The funny thing is, when you be listening to all them analysts, market, business analysts, and the Fed, however basic having food and having energy is to basically run the system that we have developed, it's not included in the CPI. How does that make sense? The most bought thing on your market is not included in the CPI. The sustainable factor of human life is not included in inflation. Anyone? Bueller? Anyone? Like, how does that make any sense? Like, I'm just trying to wrap my head around all this paperwork that we're so, like, I guess we're drowning in paperwork. We can't eat paper, y'all. Right? I mean, it's got fiber, I'll give it that, but we can't eat paperwork. The bureaucracy exists not for us. We just gotta go way back. We gotta return. We gotta return from so much crap that's been introduced over and over and over. I'm so happy for Doge. I really am. I know most people are gonna agree with this kind of stuff, man. That's insane. It's absolutely ridiculous. I can't even wrap my head around this kind of stuff.
Term disturbance, but long term, it's gonna make our country a fortune.
So Americans should prepare for some short-term pain.
No, you said that. I didn't say that. You know?
Well, if the prices go up, and
Let's see what happens. Nobody really knows what is going to happen, other than we know that jobs are going to be produced at levels that we haven't seen before. We know that we think interest rates are going to ultimately be coming down because of things that happen, and they go hand in hand with the tariffs. But we think that the prices for some things, many things, it could be all things, will go down. Ultimately, will go down.
Mr. President, can you explain the timeline here, sir? There's a period of time for a review, a report, 180 days. Sure. What's the earliest date that you think tariffs will actually be implemented and executed?
Well, I would say maybe I'll ask Howard to answer that because he's going to be the one that's implementing. What do you think?
Our studies should be all complete by April 1st. So we'll hand the president the opportunity to start on April 2nd if he wants. So I think we'll be ready to go on April 1st, and we'll hand it to the president, and he'll make his decisions. But remember, if they drop their tariffs, prices for Americans are coming down. Our production's going up, and our costs are going down.
You drop
Remember,
your
it's a two-way
tariffs, we won't
street.
give you tariffs.
That's why
Like,
it's called
tit
reciprocal.
for tat, man. How
American
hard is that?
CEOs directly about this? Are they calling you and asking?
How
you?
hard is that to kind of process?
Many love it.
We've been letting people take
And they say
advantage of
this
us for
is
so long.
Going to be the thing that makes our country
All
really
goes back to that
prosperous
Hillary
again.
Clinton statement
And
in
this
that
is gonna
previous
be
video or
what
whatever.
pays down to $36 trillion
Where's
in
that
debt
15?
and all the other
Where's that
things.
point?
And
Where's
this
that
is gonna
point?
be, this is an amazing day. I think this is going to be a very big day and in
14.
a very positive way for our country.
Enemies
Yes, please.
deserve respect and empathy. It takes empathy to give.
Do you have a number in mind on the European Union?
It takes
Do you have an idea
empathy.
where that number is
Take
gonna land?
empathy.
Well, what they are
give
now is
empathy.
they have a 20% VAT tax, which we're considering to be similar or the same.
We're
as
gonna
the
get
tariff.
taxed for everything.
Plus, they charge lots
You're
of
gonna get
fees,
taxed
and,
for everything.
You know, they're
Like,
doing something else. European Union.
This isn't a government versus people.
Our companies. They sued
It's a
Apple, they
government
sued
with
Google,
people
they
versus
sued,
everyone else that's taking
Facebook.
advantage of us.
They sued many other companies.
Right?
And
Anyone?
They're American companies, and the kind of numbers are
man.
staggering. And the court system over
It's
there is not
chaos.
very
It's
good to our
absolute
companies. If you know that
bonkers.
Apple had to pay, I think, $16 billion in a penalty, a court case that was really shocking because
All
most
right,
people thought they would have won
so
that court
that's
case.
that.
People that watched it. So
Is
they've
it
been
on?
very tough. Airlines have called me up and they said, could you help us with Europe because they're charging us so many different fees. I got a call from the head of American, United, and other
Oh my
airlines
God, this
saying
installation
every time we
or
land a
this
plane, we
compiling
get
is taking
just
forever.
absolutely killed
Come on.
by the European Union.
Finish the
And
compile.
so,
You're almost there.
They haven't been treated as good.
Let's
You know,
go,
we
let's
think
go,
the
let's
European
go.
Union is wonderful. We all love Europe, love the countries in Europe. But European Union has been absolutely brutal on trade. Canada's been very
I
bad
love my
to us on
European
trade, but
people.
now
I love my
Canada's gonna have
American
to
people. You
start
know what
paying
they
up.
both are?
And
They're
Canada's
people.
been tough on the military because they have a very low
They're
military.
just human beings trying to make ends meet, man. That's what all of us are. And then we got these upper ends And it's a case, it's a true case. Someone in one of these videos was going through the fact that we can't organize ourselves, so we have these people in suits trying to do it for us. And we got to trust that they have the best intention for the regular folk, not for their own pockets. But then you see congressmen, House representatives, Senate members, they getting 200,000 a year. And in their general existence of work, they start ending up being worth $10 million, $20 million, $50 million. Look at Nancy Pelosi. Like, those people are not for us. They're for their own pockets. And it's crazy. Like, all right, everyone's trying to survive. So, sure, there is a small incentive for a person to just be a little bit for themselves. But I mean, if you're making 200,000, you can survive fine. What else you need? You're making $1 million from maybe your investments in corrupt insider knowledge. All right, fine. You got $1 million. What else do you need? And then they just keep going, and they keep going, and they keep taking, and they keep being corrupt. And at some point, you're like, you're taking all the money, and the rest of us are like drying out over here. And we're trying to do our best to like build you stuff, whether it's a software developer building you applications, whether it's a carpenter building you some dressers, making a couch. Like, they're using up their muscles and their bodies. They're wearing their bodies down to get that stuff to your door. And what these congressmen doing? They're just signing papers. Oh, carpal tunnel. That's their end result there. They're going to have a little bit of carpal tunnel while the carpenter is literally going to have back problems by the time he retires because he's been lifting wood all the time, trying to make a dresser and stuff. And there's just this mix, man. There's this confusion of what productivity is anymore. We've confused, obfuscated productivity with pushing pencils instead of pushing logs so we can cut them up and make something useful for a person's home. Physical products. I will even say, as a programmer, there's a level of like unnecessity of a programmer. Like, a programmer ain't gonna make you a couch to sit on. We can maybe make you a website to sell your couch. Yeah, we can improve the process. But you don't need it. You can call up people on the phone, see if they want a couch. The efficiency, sure, is going to be way better with programming, but that's kind of the thing. It's a utility. It's a supporting factor. I would never consider myself any more capable, if even close capable, to any one of my friends that can make, a fence from metal, wielding. That's the kind of stuff I want to do too. That'd be cool. You need a freaking factory of tools, but they're building you a couch from basic components like wood and glue. And then you have someone on top that's gonna sew all the cushions on it. It's just a teamwork effort. All those people get paid nothing compared to these politicians. And they work like 20 million times more than what we've been watching. If you're one of these, I'm gonna go through a video. Maybe I'm kind of done with this one. But there's a case where you're just watching these. Let me see, budget. Yeah. Which one's this? 1 day ago, Lindsay? Let's see what's going on with the budget. They just basically yell and bitch at each other. That's
We're
like
here
what's going on.
to pass a budget resolution bill that would allow $175 billion to be spent to secure our border, $150 billion to be
Completed
spent to
successfully.
increase
All
our
right,
military
so
capability. About $20
I know
billion,
I
I
can use
think,
this
for
on
the
my other
Coast
computer.
Guard. And we're going to instruct the appropriate committees to do that. And we're going to instruct other committees to find offsets that are reconciliation compliant, mandatory spending that's not Social Security. And the reason we're doing that is there's been a bit of debate between the House and the Senate about what to do and why. The reason I want to start, and I want to start now,
Python
is because there's a sense of urgency about the immigration plan of President Trump in this regard.
214.
87% of the people, according to the New York Times, support deporting immigrants who are here illegally and have criminal records. 87%. 65% support deporting immigrants who are here illegally and arrived over the last 4 years. 55% support deporting all immigrants who are here illegally. And that's sort of where the public is. The problem we have now is that ICE is running out of money. And to my colleagues in the House, I hope you can pass one big, beautiful bill meeting the priorities of President Trump and what we've been promising to do as a party.
Triple B's up in there.
But we got to move on this issue. Tom Hallman said yesterday, the ICE czar, for lack of a better word, there are 300,000 children missing in this country, and if we get more money, we can find them quicker, and only God knows what they're going through. We need to finish the wall. Bed space is in short supply, so when we apprehend somebody, they just can't be deported right then on the spot. They have to be housed, and there's a legal process to go through, and we're running out of bed space, so we desperately need more detention space, and we need more ICE agents to make this happen. So what's happened here is that we're dealing with 4 years, in my view, of irresponsible immigration policy. For the last 4 years, people have been waved through the country, into the country, violating the parole statute. Laken Riley.
Morning.
The young lady that was murdered in Georgia, the man convicted of killing her was in custody and was paroled because lack of detention space in Texas. That's not a legitimate reason to parole someone under our law. You can parole people for 2 reasons. A special need they offer to our country, or a unique humanitarian need that they have, not lack of bed space. We're going to fix this. We ran campaigns in 2024 about what to do on immigration, and our party said we were going to deport criminals, we're going to finish the wall, we're going to give ICE the tools they need to bring law and order back to America, and we need money to do that. To my Republican colleagues in the House, I'm pulling for one big, beautiful bill, but there's a sense of urgency. I hope you will consider what we do if you cannot produce the one big, beautiful bill quickly. To my Democratic colleagues, President Trump was right to run on the idea of mass deportations in response to mass illegal immigration. The number of people that have crossed into this country legally in the last 4 years is in the probably over 10 million. And now the hard work of getting the criminals out of the country begins.
It's the problem with making your own applications.
And hiring
all
the
your
people
antiviruses
necessary to
be
make
screaming
that
out,
happen.
hey,
This bill will allow the money to be spent to make that happen.
we don't know what this
If
program
we get
is.
this bill through the Senate and the House, ICE will have the money they need to finish the job we promised they would do. If we get this bill through the Senate and the House on the president's desk, the military will have $150 billion to upgrade their ability to defend this nation, and the Coast Guard will be better off. And to my Republican colleagues, we're going to pay for every penny of this. We're going to spend it in 4 years, and we're going to pay for it in 4 years. So I am ready to get started. The campaign is behind us. It's now time to govern. We made promises. We're going to keep those promises. And it starts today. And the next thing we'll do is deal with taxes and spending.
It's going to suck, but you know
Senator
what,
Johnson,
man?
I am
Ripping the
committed
Band-Aid is
to making
better
sure
than
we
keeping it
spend
on for
consistent
centuries
with the values that we have as Republicans. And I am dying to work with my Democratic colleagues to fix a broken immigration system, but that only happens after you regain control of your border and you deport the people that should have never been here to begin with. The idea of comprehensive immigration reform is going to be put on hold until we get control of our border. I've been involved in every effort to produce a comprehensive immigration bill, and the problem we have now is 4 years of just open borders has done a lot of damage to that idea. It'd be very hard to convince a Republican, let's legalize anybody, no matter how worthy the case may be for legalization, until you first control your border. And we're never going to do that again. I'm never going to be put in that position. We're going to control the border first. We're going to get control over the gangs that roam the streets in America first. Then we'll talk about what to do next. So with that, I look forward to the markup.
In the great movie Casablanca, we encounter the phrase, "I'm shocked to find gambling here." I have to say, sitting through this hearing and listening to our Democrat colleagues say, I'm shocked that anyone would think there was weaponization at the Department of Justice or the FBI.
Shocked and appalled.
It makes me wonder where my Democrat colleagues have been the last 4 years. In over 200 years of our nation's history, we've had 47 presidents. Mr. Blanche, of those 47 presidents, how many not named Donald John Trump have been indicted?
0.
How many presidents not named Donald Trump have been prosecuted?
0.
How many not named Donald J. Trump have had FBI agents arrive at their home and rifle through their home?
0.
Throughout 4 years of the brazen weaponization of the Department of Justice and the FBI, Senate Democrats sat by meekly and mutely. Understand, President Trump wasn't indicted once, he wasn't indicted twice, he wasn't indicted 3 times, 4 separate times by partisan Democrat prosecutors who were terrified that the American people would vote to reelect him. You heard just a minute ago my friend from Vermont ask you to defend the good men and women of the FBI. I agree, you should defend the good men and women of the FBI, and I'll tell you, I've heard from FBI agents who are horrified at an institution that had built a reputation for integrity being cheapened by being turned into a political weapon to attack the opposition of the Democrat White House. The single biggest thing, Mr. Blanche, you can do to protect the good men and women of the FBI is to restore integrity to the FBI and end the weaponization that has caused half of the country to no longer trust what used to be the premier law enforcement agency in the world.
Okay.
For 4 years, we saw the Biden Justice Department happily weaponize that agency to go after their political opponents. We saw Mark Houck, a pro-life protester who faced a pro-abortion protester who screamed and shoved his son, and he pushed the man back. In response for pushing a man back who had screamed at his 12-year-old son, the Biden Department of Justice and FBI sent an army of FBI agents at the crack of dawn to his house, machine guns drawn, to arrest him in front of his 7 kids. Mr. Houck had, by the way, offered, through his counsel, to turn himself in. In your many years as a prosecutor, have you ever sent an army of FBI agents to arrest someone who's offered to turn themselves in peacefully?
No.
And yet no one at the Department of Justice seemed troubled by that. They happily authorized that. And not a single Democrat on this committee, to the best of my knowledge, has ever asked one damn question about it. When the National Association of School Boards sent a letter to Joe Biden complaining that parents were unhappy by their radical policies that were happening to children, within days, the White House sent that to the Department of Justice, and days later, the Attorney General sent a formal memo to the FBI saying, target parents. I want you to go after parents who are exercising their First Amendment rights. And we've had moms and dads all over the country who've had the G-men come knocking on their door because they had the temerity to exercise free speech. Is targeting moms and dads who go to school boards and engage in peaceful speech, is that a permissible use of law enforcement?
Not in my view, Senator.
All right, that's getting boring,
You know,
but that's what you get. We're watching these guys. I want to watch that one dude. Hearing? Where's that one guy that's always talking about the debt, man? He's a math guy. He's always talking about the math. Oh, I should remember his name. Why don't I remember his name? Um, I wonder if my AI knows. Thomas Macy. Oh, dude. Dude, I love AI. Hold on, I think so. I think so. I think so. No, 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 don't open that. I don't need another browser. Thank you. Bye. Thank you kindly. This guy. Is it this guy? Report questions, witnesses on drone tracking. No. That's some interesting stuff. When was that? 5 months ago? 7 months ago? Let's see what he's got about Tesla.
I now recognize myself for 5 minutes.
Let's see some good
Trying to
congressmen.
understand what what goes into
People
an
that
ESG
actually talk
score. Mr. Bienvenu, are you aware
data.
that last year S&P Global gave Tesla an ESG rating of 37 out of 100, while at the same time giving Philip Morris a rating of 84 out of 100? You familiar with
I'm not aware of that. I will tell you that for us, ESG ratings are part of the mosaic and the investment decision that we make, because it's critical for us that we consider all of those topics.
So you would consider this in your investments, these ESG ratings?
We consider every information that we can get in our investments. More information
So shouldn't
is
you
better for
know
an
what's
investor.
behind the fact that Tesla got less than 40 and a tobacco company got more than 80? Would that cause you to invest in the tobacco company over an electric car company?
As I said, every investment decision we make is a mosaic of hundreds and thousands of factors.
But you're testifying today, you have no idea how Tesla got half the score that a tobacco company got?
As I
Do you
said
know what goes into these ratings?
As I said previously, we own 10,000 companies, and each one has.
God, these people.
Do you own Tesla or
speak
Philip
crap.
Morris?
We own Tesla.
Do you have any Philip Morris?
We do not have any Philip Morris.
Okay. Well, I wish you could explain to us today why Tesla has an ESG rating of 37. Philip Morris had 84 last year. Attorney General Ellison, if 3 airline companies got together and decided, let's say the management of the airline companies, and decided to reduce flights or to get rid of their frequent flyer program, would that be collusion? Would you pursue that?
Well, let me tell you, there's a lot of things that go into any antitrust case, and so just to answer your question with only what you've asked, I'd say I need to investigate more, but just on the bare bones of what you asked, it would get our interest.
Will get your interest. What if instead of the companies, their investors did this, or a shell company that all three of the airlines were a part of suggested to all three companies that they should reduce flights?
Well, there I can't go with you because the only thing that, I mean, if you're talking about the folks assembled here and other groups that give information to companies, those companies are making independent decisions and making decisions on the interests of the people who they represent, whether they be shareholders or whether they be pension fund beneficiaries.
I'm glad in the first instance it would get your interest up, because that's why we're having the hearing here. We see evidence that these group of investors has conspired, collaborated, colluded, convened, whatever you want to call it.
I'm creating it
That's
here.
still
Oh,
pretty
equals.
much the same thing, to reduce the outputs of their companies or the companies that they target. And, you know, Ms. Lubber, you said that mainly what you all advocate for is disclosure, but don't you also try to get the companies to do things?
We're interested in the companies taking positions that allow them to be strong and profitable over the short, medium, and long term. And every discussion, whether it's with an auto company, looks at where's the market going as it relates to EVs, not just combustion engine vehicles.
Well, here's the problem we have. What is demand management? Somebody want to tell me what demand management is? Because nobody jumped on that. So, you know, it's in all of your documents, demand management. It's kind of the go-to thing to reduce. When you discover that the technology isn't there yet to reduce the emissions and keep the
There we go.
production the same,
Space,
you
space,
suggest in the
extract
documents
wisdom.
that the companies, here's a
Okay.
document called Investor
this is
Actions
what
to
I
Align the
need.
Aviation Sector with the IEAS 1.5 degree
Throwing it here.
decarbonization pathway. It suggests that the
Now we can
aviation
activate
companies
that
themselves
command.
could manage demand by raising their prices. Now, the problem here is that this is coordination. You guys are putting these documents together. You're sending them to everybody. You're collaborating on the documents, and then you're going to the companies
You probably
that,
shouldn't do stream,
you've
should I?
invested in and saying you should do
Remove
this.
that.
We know the technology's not there, but you know, here's
Just
some of the
pattern
suggestions for the
extract.
airline companies: keeping business travel to 2019 levels, capping long-haul flights for leisure at 2019 levels, reducing total flights by 12%. These are in the documents that you send to your members, and again, you call it demand management. What I would say is that if we saw anybody else doing this for any other reason, the fact that you think you have a noble reason isn't enough to get you around the law. It's not, because what you're doing ends up raising prices, reducing production, and it's not good for society, and it's not, in many cases, not good for the firms you're investing in. And that's why we're having this hearing today. And I see that my time has expired. Attorney General Ellison, I understand you need to leave.
Unfortunately.
And I appreciate you coming. You probably never want to come back here again, I would say. But congratulations on your new job, and thank you for participating today.
May I just thank you, Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member, for your hospitality today, and I am
Yeah, it's
always
taking
happy
forever
to
to
help
work it.
advance
We
the
working it?
legislative process in whatever way I can. So thank you very much.
We appreciate your time. And if the other witnesses will stay, that would be
Don't
good.
look
because we have a
like
few
we
more,
working it.
folks
Maybe
who
the
wanna
stream messed some
ask
stuff
questions.
up.
Now, let's see, we got the gentleman from Vermont.
I mean, now my GPU is hot. All right, let's try that again.
Something interesting has happened with our debt here recently that hasn't happened in history, really. We got to about 20.
Whoa, hold up. Yeah, wait, that's a while ago. 20? A year ago. Yo, can you imagine? That's insane. A year ago we were at 20 what?
Something interesting has happened with our debt here recently that hasn't happened in history, really. We got to about $26 trillion by borrowing money. And then most recently when COVID hit and the first $2 trillion package came to the floor, there weren't $2 trillion to borrow. It didn't exist in circulation. So what happened? How did we finance that debt? How do we finance that $2 trillion and the next $2 trillion and the next trillion? In fact, we financed $5 trillion of this debt by printing money. The Federal Reserve printed the money, and then the Treasury borrowed it from the Federal Reserve. So we kind of borrowed it from ourselves, but what came into existence was $5 trillion that did not exist before. Now, had we borrowed it, we would have taken it out of the economy, and then when the money was put back into the economy through various programs that were supposed to help businesses, and may or may not have had their intended effect.
That's another one, but not the one
If
I'm
we had
thinking
if we had
of.
borrowed the money and put the money back in, we wouldn't have increased the money in circulation. But what we did over the last 3 years is increase by $5 trillion the amount of money that's in circulation before the banks loaned it out fractionally.
Yeah,
Mr.
loaned it.
Raskin, do you think that creating
To their
new money and
buybacks.
putting it into the economy had any effect on inflation?
But I assume it does, but I've not looked at the studies about that. I mean, you're talking about the QE2 lending program that the Fed
Is
set up.
he
with
wearing a
Treasury.
do-rag
This
in
is
Congress
since,
over here?
QE2.
A house?
Yeah.
This was specifically for
Is that guy
COVID.
seriously wearing the do-rag? What is
The
that?
Federal Reserve created $5 trillion. If you look at their graph, it's kind of flat for since 1917.
Yeah.
Their balance sheet. Then it went up $5 trillion right there.
What is that?
And so what that means is $5 trillion came from somewhere. What happened is they printed the money and then loaned it to Treasury. Then Treasury, well, we spent the money. I don't want to blame Treasury. Congress appropriated this money and it went out the door, and then that went into people's hands and they started buying stuff.
Right. No, I mean, that's a serious question, and certainly there are fiscal
Check that
stimulus
do-rag out.
sources of
Man,
inflation.
look at
and
that
there
guy.
Are,
That's crazy.
you know, and there are Fed
Man's a Rastafarian over here.
sources of inflation as well. But they're not executive order sources of inflation. I mean, no economists have ever identified that. So, but that's a serious question, and of course,
Chip,
that
can I have
goes.
your tea?
I mean, that goes way beyond the purview of this legislation.
So this is Chip Roy's tea. He doesn't need it anymore, I've decided. This is what happens when you have a quantity of something and then you add more to it. This is dilution. The principle is so simple that a child can understand. And you can create this little science project at home. Sorry, you can have your tea back. Okay. But
True.
the principle is called dilution. And when you print $5 trillion and you put it into the economy, you have diluted the value of the money. So
That's
for
what we've been
instance, if
doing
you
for the
had a
last
minimum
10
wage
years, yo.
at some amount, and somebody was making minimum
mean,
wage, and they were still making minimum wage after
How
this
much
money was
money
printed, they
has the
actually are
United
making
States
considerably
diluted
less in terms of
into
real dollars. It's
circulation
dilution. So
in the last
the
10
$5 trillion
years?
that we printed, I would argue, is the primary source of inflation. You know, we can say, well, eggs went up because feed went up.
1.8
Fuel
trillion,
went
4
up
trillion,
because,
2
there's a war
trillion.
in Ukraine. You can find a lot of excuses for various different industries. But what is the probability that every price went up all at the
Well,
same
we can
time?
take a look
You
at a
can't
chart.
blame them on specific supply chain problems. The thing
How do
that-
you explain the global?
Yes, I'm glad you asked me that, Professor Raskin. Because they did the same thing in Europe. They did this everywhere. They printed their own equivalents of the Federal Reserve and Treasuries, created their own money out of thin air. It may be the only thing that saved our dollar is that everybody else did the same thing to their
Hey, there it is.
And so, the question is,
5 years, Max.
right now
What are
we're
you talking
coming up
about?
on the debt limit. Why isn't anybody proposing to
In
print
the
more
last
money?
5
Why aren't the
years,
economists proposing to print more money?
we've
'Cause
diluted
it is
6
poison. When
trillion.
you print money, it is poison to our economy.
There's
and
more,
it is
way
very
more.
regressive. Inflation is extremely regressive, especially when it affects the goods that everybody needs to buy. Energy.
Yeah,
I love it when
24,
they
no,
print
10 year,
the
let's go
consumer
10.
price index, neglecting food and energy and housing, right? like the three things that no matter how poor you are, you still need. We'll just leave those out when we look at the effect of inflation, but you can't leave those things out. So the reason we're not,
that ain't no million.
We could just print more money again like we did over the last 3 years, but the reality is everybody in this room knows. And if we don't, we have staff who
Let's see since
that
2000.
if you
How
print
about
money,
that?
you're going to wreck this economy. So I found it interesting that the Fed raised interest rates very aggressively over the last several quarters, the last year.
I can't go to 2000.
Do you have any idea,
Man, where does
Mr.
data
Raskin,
go in?
why they would raise interest rates?
2010.
You know, but I really don't. I've not followed it that closely. I mean, your line of questioning to me is interesting because I think it goes
This
to what
doesn't
the
even
real
work.
sources of inflation are in the economy and
Oh, maybe I
what the
gotta
money
do.
supply is and
God,
so
I
on.
hate some of these
Remember that
interactive pieces there.
the various
And then click
actions
on that.
taken that you
Okay.
identified were in response to a crisis, which was COVID-19 and an economic collapse in the country, and everybody on a bipartisan basis, with perhaps the potential exception of you, was
Yeah,
demanding
that's
that
the
the
chart I'm
the federal
looking for.
government act in order to bolster the economy because the restaurants
This is
were going
trillion,
down,
by the
and
way. I don't know
hotels
why
were
it's
going
saying
down,
capital
our
M.
businesses were collapsing, and so we make no apologies for any of the rescue legislation.
Oh, because it's
that we did, and we think we did
21,000
the right thing, even
million,
if that
which
was,
converts to
you know,
trillion.
some small contributor to the
Clever,
overall
I
global
guess.
inflation
Ruse.
that we saw. And I will say that, of course,
Look at
this has
that. We
been a
were so chilling
bipartisan
back in 1970s,
policy
80s,
commitment,
but
and
man, I
under
grew up
President
fast
Trump,
here.
we know that your side of the aisle
1990s.
voted 3 times to lift
Those were
the
pretty
debt limit,
stable years. I don't
as
remember
requested
them.
by
I was a
President Trump.
child.
And
But I do
President
remember
Trump's
good
own
times.
spending contributed 25% of the total debt
And
of the
then
United States
2000
from
hit.
George Washington
And then
to Joe Biden.
2008 hit.
25% of it. So
And
this
then
is
it
a
just kept
bipartisan problem.
going. And then 2020
I like those
blew
numbers
that
where we
sucker
look
up
at
even.
which
Dude,
administration was
2020
in
went
power
from
when the debt
15 to
went up,
25.
what percent,
Not
maybe
25,
25% under Trump.
22 trillion.
Reality is we are the ones who raised the debt limit, not the
We just keep raising the debt
president.
limit.
So
It's
I went back
obvious.
and
Look at this stuff.
to see under which speaker did the debt limit
Can I
go
download
up, or
this?
did the debt go up
No.
the most? And it turns out somewhere between 43 and 45% of all the debt. You mentioned that.
Can
45%
I
of all the debt
go
was under
through the
Trump.
chart
Using those
data?
same metrics, 43 to
Nah,
45%
it's just gonna
of
give
all
me
the
an
debt
image.
ever incurred in this country happened while Ms. Pelosi was Speaker.
Look at that.
Now, she had a good run at it. She had 2 chances to do it. She was Speaker twice.
And just keeps on going up. That arrow go up.
So I think it's unfair to blame any one administration. I think it's more fair to blame us. And in reality, because we're the ones who raised it. Now, the problem with the stimulus
Keep
that we
raising
did
the roof,
during
man.
COVID, yes, there was an economic calamity and people stayed home, but when you gave farmers money, when you gave people money, the farmers didn't make
What
more
the
goods,
M1
the factories
supply,
didn't make more
yeah.
goods, the refineries didn't refine more
There's
oil.
a good chart. Look at that.
Demand for
All
fuel
right.
went down, so we
My
saw
God, look at that
temporary.
2020.
If you look at inflation, it actually went down there for a
My
while nobody
God.
was doing much of anything. But after we put that money in their hands,
God, what was the
now they're
M1 versus
chasing
M2
goods
difference?
that don't exist. They literally buying the inventory because so many things were shut down. Let me ask you, Mr. Comer, the same question I asked Mr. Rath.
M1 currently held by the public. M2, all components of M1 plus deposits
Interest rates
and
and
deposits.
why the Federal Reserve might have raised the interest rates so aggressively. Do you have any idea of what they might
Look at that,
have been
dude. Oh
trying
my
to do
God.
when they raised those interest rates?
4
Slow
trillion.
inflation. You raise
And we
interest rates
multiplied it
for
by
one
5
reason, and
after
that's to slow
2020.
inflation.
That screwed us up
The,
so bad,
The
yo.
2 ways that most
So much
economists would
dilution in the
agree
money supply.
you
No
reduce
wonder we're
inflation
going through like
is you raise
eggs
interest
costing
rates
7
and you
frickin'
reduce
bucks
government spending.
when it used to be like $1.50.
And that's
No
exactly
freaking
what they
wonder.
did. Now, I found it interesting. Now that we have established that, and we all know that, they raise.
That's
Nobody
insane.
would want to raise interest rates. Low interest rates, people can borrow money, you can buy housing, the price of housing, people can afford housing more. Investors, entrepreneurs can get money
Quote,
more
unquote,
easily, and
recovery.
your economy grows faster with lower interest rates. So they would prefer to have them low, but they had to raise them, they felt, to combat inflation. Now, what I found interesting was the timing. Mr. Raskin,
Purchasing bonds,
why do you think they really
lowering interest
aggressively
rates,
raised interest rates just a week or two after
establishing
the
several
Inflation
new
Reduction
facilities to provide
Act
credit.
passed? I mean, the Federal Reserve.
Uh-oh. My AI model is like
Raised interest. I
trying to
thought it was
share
kind of
my
interesting
GPU right now with everything
that they
else.
would
Holy
do it
crap.
since we already had an Inflation Reduction
Take your
Act and
time,
it had been
take your
signed by
time.
the president. Why would they take action to do that?
Well, I take it everybody was calling for action on inflation, and so it required a kind of coordinated response, and the Fed acting in the same direction as Congress makes sense.
Maybe Senator Joe Manchin reduced the confidence at the Federal Reserve that the Inflation Reduction Act was going to do much of anything when he said it
2.2
wouldn't
trillion,
do much of anything.
CARES
And I
Act,
think that's what we all know. It was a climate change
900
bill.
billion, 350. All right, I'm gonna have to pause that video, I think, because
It wasn't really about reducing.
it's really bogging down my system. Gotta let it think. We got 2, 3, 4, 8. Yeah, it was something like 8, wasn't it? 8 trillion entered into the system. The quantitative easing program. It's gotta be something around 8. I remember that number. It was a beast, and that's like more than or just about half of our current circulation. How crazy is that, man? Let's keep going, I guess.
Inflation.
Well, if I could say one thing on that,
Yes,
it
please.
certainly reduced the cost of prescription drugs for people in the Medicare program and reduced the cost of diabetics getting their insulin shots. So that affects millions and millions of our constituents across the country. That was inflation too.
So here's the interesting thing. The arsonists became the firefighters at the Federal Reserve. If you remember where I began, $5 trillion was created by the Federal Reserve. And then, which we said, thank you very much. We'll take those 5 trillion new imaginary dollars that spend just like real dollars, and we'll, actually, we didn't put a lot of that money into the hands of consumers. They got maybe 12% of it, 20% if you count the unemployment programs. Most of it went to big companies. But so then we
got an error,
took the
huh?
$5 trillion the Federal Reserve created
Dial
and
TCP,
caused massive
localhost, IO
inflation
timeout.
with the Federal
Oh,
Reserve
maybe
printing
because I
that money.
did other stuff
Now
on the
who's here to
side.
save the day?
Dang.
The Federal Reserve
Let's
comes
try that
in
again.
on a white horse. Oh, look at this fire, this raging fire called inflation. We're going to put it out, and we've got just the tool. We're going to hose down the economy. This thing is too hot. Well, the reality is it wasn't too hot. Inflation was too hot. Sometimes you raise interest rates when, if your economy is doing great, it can be a tool, a reasonable tool to reduce inflation. The problem is when your inflation's raging and your economy is not, and you raise interest rates, you just make life difficult on everybody, on people trying to buy homes, on businesses who are trying to invest and expand production to meet the new demand of the new money that's out there. So anyways, I just hope everybody recognizes that the firefighters, i.e. the Fed, are the arsonists who started this problem by creating $5 trillion out of thin
So
air.
agreed.
And here's what else is going to happen. We haven't even begun to see inflation,
Firefighters
what the result of all that will be.
need
That's
to
why I
work.
think this bill is important. We shouldn't
So
be
they
doing
need a
things
fire.
that exacerbate this track that we are already on. Mark my words. I know a lot of people don't come to Rules Committee to look for predictions, but
think
I'm
my
going to make a prediction.
antivirus
This
is
the tip of the
getting in the way of
iceberg,
my
the
firewall.
inflation that we are seeing, because we have to refinance that $32 trillion of debt that we have right now, and the interest rates. The Fed
Yeah,
raised
AI
the interest
tools.
rates about 2.5%. So now, some of the debt we have at the $32 trillion, we have short-term debt, and it'll have to be refinanced quickly. Some of it already has been refinanced at these higher rates. Some of it's much longer, 10 years. But if you refinanced $32 trillion at 2.5% higher interest rates, that's $800 billion of additional interest. Here's what makes me so concerned. How are we going to finance the additional $800 billion of interest? Are we going to raise taxes? I don't think we are. I think we're going.
Gentleman, you?
In just a second, I think we're going to print more money. And what's that going to do? It's going to raise inflation. And what will the Fed do to try to control inflation? They will raise interest rates. What's going to happen then? We're going to have higher interest on our own debt. We're going to print more money.
And
I
the
think we're
cycle
at the beginning
continues.
of a vicious cycle that's not going to calm down for a while.
We are.
And I'll yield to Mr. Neguse.
Yeah, I would just simply
Absolutely,
say I
we
think
are.
you see a lot of heads nodding. I think it's a fascinating discussion, and I've certainly learned a lot. And I guess I wonder why we can't take up a bill regarding the Fed's decision-making as opposed to this reporting bill about executive orders that has nothing to do with any of what you
Thank you.
described.
I have a few of those bills, and I would love I have some Democrats
link
on
up.
this bill, actually. Would love your co-sponsorship on an audit of the Federal Reserve.
Let's vote this bill down, and let's get back down to doing, considering some of these other measures that might have a real impact.
All right,
I yield back.
Reclaiming my time. I thank you very much. I think this is a good bill. The only concern that I have about it, and this gets to the base bill itself, has some exemptions for if there's an emergency or national security.
Yeah.
It's
All
got
right. So it was my antivirus. God, that always happens.
Consider how much inflation we might be causing in our response.
Good enough.
To this
Now I got to
emergency or
transfer
to
that
this
over
national
to
security
my
issue. I think we
base
shouldn't
llamas.
care what the reason is we're spending the money. We should always know what the consequences are to inflation. So I have just a small issue with the base bill, but it's also an issue I have with most of the Democrat amendments to this bill. They create exemptions where you won't even want to measure what the inflation is that's caused by it. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, my colleague, Mr. Roy, probably has an amendment to get rid of all of the
No, I
exemptions
can maybe
for when
adjust
you
some
wouldn't want
buttons
to
on the
know
sucker.
when you're causing inflation. So before I yield back, I just want to say that I support Mr. Roy's amendment, and
I
eggs
do
are up
wanna make
70%,
my inputs a
butter's
little
up
bit cleaner.
32%, airline fares are up 25%, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentlelady from New Mexico. And for the panel.
I thank the chairman of the Rules Committee. We're aware of so many abuses of the FISA 702 program now that we weren't aware of years ago. And I'm sure Chairman John Conyers and Ranking Member Jim Sensenbrenner, when they put this into place in 2008,
All right.
didn't anticipate
So I need to figure out
the
a
ways
command
that this would
structure
be abused. But now that we know
for
it's
the
been
input,
abused, even the agencies
which
are
is
telling
connected
us
to my
that they've
button.
abused it. Not once, not
Or
twice,
just a
not
whole different
100 times, not 1,000 times, but
I already have a model section,
278,000 times it's been found to be abused. And given all of that, and given what we know, I think
Extract
we would be
YouTube.
derelict in our oath of office, where we swear to uphold and defend the Constitution, if we
button
did a
3.
clean reauthorization of FISA or anything close to it.
South dot button.
We have to address these
3
issues,
dot
and we can't take their word for it
click
from the FBI
dot
anymore.
connect.
We promise, we double promise
create a function
that we will
self
not
dot
abuse this again.
parse
They've tried to assure us that they have
YouTube. What's the function
protocols
name
in
that I'm gonna
place.
make?
protocols are not warrants. Like our founding fathers got this right when they said that everybody's going to be secure in your place and effects and your personal belongings.
Now
When
I
they
gotta take
enshrined our
my
privacy in the Constitution and said you have to get a warrant and have
tools.
probable cause. If the government wants to surveil citizens, those are the things that you have to have. And, they've erected this legal scaffolding that I think is some of the shakiest scaffolding I've ever seen, where they say that it's
Where's my
legal.
saturation?
What they're doing
I don't
is
need
legal
saturation.
right now. But let me summarize what they're doing. They are using the FISA, this is Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, not Domestic Intelligence Surveillance Act. It's FISA, Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, and they're targeting people who don't have constitutional rights. I'm fine with that.
Don't mess with more.
Vladimir Putin doesn't have constitutional rights. Merkel doesn't even have constitutional rights, okay? Not in this country. Now, she visits, will afford her some rights. But anybody who's not a U.S. citizen, who is not inside of the United States, doesn't have those rights. And so we can spy on them. And I'm fine with that. And nobody here is talking about stopping that at all.
So we're going to do tools.
What we're talking about is a program that right now was designed to target foreigners. It is being targeted. It is targeting foreigners, but it is harvesting massive amounts of data, and incidentally collects our information, our communications, members of Congress, donors to members of Congress, just regular constituents who get up and go to work. They get swept up in this. And what they're saying now with this legal scaffolding is because we collected it legally, we can legally go in there without a warrant and search for Americans. There's a problem with that. Yes, Mr. Nadler.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Turn your microphone.
But then that's the whole thing. By the time it parses, I need to give it a process in the background.
The bill before us is totally inadequate. You're going to hear, after Jim and I leave, you're going to hear from the Intel Committee. They're going to tell you exactly the opposite.
Create a worker again.
The Judiciary Committee has proposed 3 amendments. The warrant
Which means I got to attach that worker to my tools.
Amendment and the about collection. I've spoken about it, though. If those amendments are adopted, it's a good bill. Protects.
Let me see where I got the working payload.
Intelligence protects Americans' civil liberties.
Right, model, there's the payload, self-session, AI worker, set llama payload.
The Intel Committee has 3 amendments that go in the opposite direction. One expands the already expansive definition of foreign intelligence. One subjects new business to surveillance under Section 702.
Mess.
And one drags immigration into the debate by turning Section 702 on anyone who crosses our border.
Some of these guys out.
Those 3 amendments go in the wrong direction.
It really simplifies down to these.
If they are adopted, we may not be able to support the bill. We certainly can't support the bill without the warrant, but even with the warrant, if some of these amendments are adopted, they call the bill into question. I hope the committee will make the 3 Judiciary Committee amendments in order and the 3 Intel Committee amendments that I just mentioned not in order.
At least I have the thread pool already started. That's a good thing.
Tomorrow. I have a better odds of improving the bill on the floor.
All I need to throw in is the function,
that
the
does what we need to
variable,
do for intelligence and protects our civil liberties.
and then start the worker.
This is a rare occurrence, and I hope it's not too common, but I find nothing to disagree with in your testimony.
The return is tricky.
Mr. Jordan, Chairman Jordan, can you go through what those 3 amendments, 3 or 4 amendments, I don't know how many Judiciary is offering,
the return
and I know we're going to hear from those sponsors later, but can you just briefly summarize what those are and why they're important?
Okay,
we got the warrant requirement, probable cause warrant requirement. We have the Fourth Amendment's not for sale, which is in essence a warrant-like issue because it says the federal government can't go purchase data that would otherwise require a warrant to get. And then we get rid of abouts collection, which is if people that are being targeted, they talk about someone, you can't collect that information. That hasn't been in operation for 7 years. We just want to say if you haven't done it for 7 years, you should end it. So those are the 3 key amendments that we have coming forward that we think help. But I would just point out, you're exactly right, Congressman. protocols and process by the executive branch do not equal a warrant by a separate and equal branch. That's why we have our system. We're literally talking about the fundamentals here. And then when you put in what we've learned, as you pointed out, since 2008, where there are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of targets our government has that they're surveilling.
Hold
Those
on,
people talk to all kinds. Some of them are just like diplomats from friendly, like you mentioned Merkel or her assistant who works for Merkel.
Holy crap.
Those kind of things. They're collecting all kinds of communications, and guess how many times they searched that communication data on U.S. persons in 2021? They said, here's the estimate we got from the Justice Department. Estimate, 3,394,053. That's how many times they searched this giant haystack of information that they're collecting on Americans. And all we're saying is if you're going to do that on an American, go get a warrant, which the ranking member rightly pointed out happens every stinking day in this country. Every day law enforcement gets warrants. That's all we're saying. That's the protection. And oh, by the way, if there's an emergency exigent circumstance, you don't have to get the warrant. Or if you go to the person and say, we think you're being targeted by a foreign government, will you give us your consent? You can give your consent. Or if they know it's some kind of malware that they know a distinctive cybersecurity threat, the malware, they can say, we can go. That's an exception. I don't know how better we could write the amendment than that. But that's how and to Ms. Scanlon's point, I argued for bringing our bill up. We're the Committee of Jurisdiction. Bring the bill that came out 35-2, put that on the floor, and let you guys on the Rules Committee make and order the amendments that the Intelligence Committee wanted to change things. That's how the process is supposed to work. We argued for the normal process. But our leadership decided, no, they want to do it this way. Okay, fine. Then let's make sure our amendments get in order. More importantly, let's hope our amendments pass tomorrow on the floor.
Now, you mentioned there were 3.3 million searches using American person identifiers. How many of those were done, according to the FBI's own protocols, wrongly?
278,000.
278,000. And what kind of things were they searching for when they went in there 278,000 times out of 3 million?
It could have been a violation of some process. It could have been, you didn't check this box, you didn't do that. It could have been a variety of reasons why it didn't comply with the rules the FBI put in themselves. I think the more fundamental point is they didn't follow their own rules. And so that's why I said at the outset of my testimony, that's why I think it's not just good enough to say, oh, we have better rules for them to follow. Well, you can have the best rules in place, but if they already demonstrated that they won't follow them, that's not enough. It's why you need a warrant.
And how many people do we think are able to search this database?
Well,
domestically. I'm not talking about CIA, NSA, FBI, DOJ.
Well, we were in a briefing, and it wasn't a classified briefing, where they told us it could be upwards of 10,000. Now the underlying legislation, which again has some good reforms in it, limits that number dramatically. We think it's now down below 1,000, but it's still a relatively big number. But it's much better than what it was, what it'll be,
But thousands of chances for somebody to basically violate the Constitution, and you got to have another branch of government watching over this. You can't have the same branch watching itself.
That's why you need the warrant.
That's why you need the warrant, exactly. Let me talk a little bit about the process, because I'm disappointed in it too. I'm a believer in a good process, and I went back and looked, and it was actually Chairman John Conyers and Ranking Member Jen Sensenbrenner who put FISA 702 into place in 2008. It was their bill, and they managed it on the floor. And Judiciary created a very good product that has the warrant in it, has provision to keep the government from buying information they would otherwise need a warrant for, has a lot of other good safeguards in it. In my opinion, that should have been the bill that was on the floor. We could have an open process here. Intel could offer as many amendments as they want. And by the way, I don't want to downplay, they do have some jurisdiction in there in the FISA bill, but it's the outward focused portion of it, not the part of it that's been turned on American citizens. Like when we're talking about who has jurisdiction over what, we're not in judiciary claiming that we need to oversee the CIA and what they're doing overseas. And Intel should not be, trying to say that they have authority or jurisdiction over when you need a warrant to spy on an American who's living in America, using information somebody else has collected, that not domestically, not with a warrant. I mean, that's one of the other fallacies. They say they collected all of this information legally. Yes, that is true. But you didn't collect it with a warrant because you were surveilling foreigners. So you can't then take that giant haystack, as you said, and it's enormous. Yep. I don't think people have an appreciation for how much data is there and how much of your private information is contained in this haystack. And Ms. Spartz has mentioned earlier, too, that we don't even know about their minimization procedures. Okay, let's say you want to target somebody in Afghanistan, okay? Well, maybe there's only one ISP in Afghanistan, and you can get all of the emails that come in and out of Afghanistan. How do we know that if your email didn't go through there or copy somebody in Afghanistan, that you're not in that giant haystack? How do we know that they're minimizing this data that they're trying to collect on what they say are legitimate targets? I don't know that we know. But okay, so we got this process. It should have been the judiciary bill. It's not the judiciary bill. It probably tracks closer to the Intel bill, the base text. There are some provisions in here that we can all agree are probably good things. But if you remember the Judiciary Committee, you know this does not go far enough. We had an open and robust debate for hours when we marked up our bill, and ultimately included the warrant provision. Ultimately included Mr. Davidson's, the Fourth Amendment is not for sale. Ultimately included a lot of other stuff that should have been in the base bill. But what we got now is a different base text, and we're going to hear a good debate over this. And then we're going to have some votes on these amendments. And that's the good thing about this process, Mr. Chairman, is that we do have a rule here that we don't know what the rule's going to be yet. I'm kind of waiting myself to see the final form and to make sure that what we've talked about is what becomes. But we're going to have a process here where every member of Congress who's present, and I think we had, how many voted last night? You know, maybe 430. Every one of those is going to be here this week. And they stand in front of God and country and their constituents, and they're going to be taking votes on whether they think you need a warrant to go get this information. Yes, Mr. Chairman.
If I could, Congressman Massey, and I think that will be the first time that the House of Representatives will have an opportunity to go on record for requiring a warrant for the 702 program. So that is why that amendment is critical, that it be made in order, and let's hope it wins. But there's a chance for, in front of God and everybody, the American people can say, who in the United States Congress believes that you should get a warrant if you're going to go look at Americans' information?
So it's interesting you bring up the statistic. Is this the first time we've had a vote on whether you should get a warrant or not? We've had similar votes. Ms. Lofgren and I have sponsored these in the appropriations process. But what we were told in that process is this is not the proper time and place to bring up the warrant in the appropriations process. That, you know, these limitation amendments, they've got parliamentary restrictions, they're blunt instruments, and if you want to legislate this properly, you need to do it in the Judiciary Committee. So I got on the Judiciary Committee, and then we got to do this, and we got a great bill, and we bring it to the floor, and we're told, no, we're going to substitute it with something else, but we'll get...
That's not going to remove the audio, so I got to re-add the audio. That's not it.
Talking about wanting to let this expire. Nobody's saying this is a tool that we should deprive our outwardly focused intelligence agencies who try to keep this country safe from foreigners. What we're saying is, It's been abused. It's been turned, the same tools that we use on Russians, and Chinese, and Iranians, we're using on our own people. The same database, we're going in there and we're fishing for Americans' information in violation of the Constitution, and that's wrong. So I think this, I'm glad to see this is coming to the floor.
God, I still can't remember that one dude. Oh, yo, let's watch this. Heck yeah.
This video is brought to you by Ground News. Stick around to hear more about the special
Idiocracy,
offer they're
baby.
providing to the entire upper echelon community. Okay, how many people watching this have seen, or ever heard of, a 2006 movie called Idiocracy? I would guess that there's a pretty decent number of people who have, at least nowadays, but you might be surprised to learn that the movie's eventual popularity was actually never intended from the start. For those of you who have seen it, you can probably skip ahead a few minutes right now because you already know the plot, obviously. But if you haven't seen the film before, it's effectively a scathing critique of American corporatism. The main character, Joe Bowers, and a lady of the night, if you will, named Rita, become the subjects of an army experiment, cryogenic freezing in this case, but instead of 1 year, they get frozen for hundreds. After finally waking up in 2505, I think it is, they re-enter the modern world and they find out that everyone around them is basically brain dead. Basic infrastructure is now falling apart. Everyone drinks Brondo instead of water, which is like a play on Gatorade. And the film is basically a never-ending string of jokes about how everyone has become an idiot, which leaves the two main characters, who are decidedly average back in the time that they come from, as the most intelligent people on all of planet Earth, simply because of basic logic, mental aptitude, and deductive reasoning. It's honestly prophetic, in a sense, when it comes to the concept of corporate advertising, at least. People buy everything that they want from a city-sized Costco facility, where they're greeted by someone who says, "Welcome to Costco, I love you." They get treated in the hospital by plugging little sensors into their mouth and their ass and their ear as well, with a drooling human operator who doesn't even really know what's happening, as the machine spits out a diagnosis for them. And all over the place, everywhere, you see a kind of logical extreme in the world of attention advertising, which now caters to people who are barely even smart enough to communicate with each other. Language has become a sort of broken slang. The most popular show on all of television is a program called Ow My Balls. And the movie even tackles the concept of hypersexualization, where Starbucks now offers handjobs. Obviously, it's way over the top extreme, but when you watch it, you start seeing a whole bunch of oddly similar and kind of uncomfortable parallels, which might be the reason why the film was initially suppressed. Most people don't know this, but the movie's publisher, 20th Century Fox, actually tried to kill their own product launch. They only released it in 7 different cities using the contractual minimum legal number of theaters, something like 130 as opposed to the normal 600 or 700. And they specifically did not market the release with trailers, advertisements, or press kits. Whatever their reason was, they intentionally took a budgetary loss on their film in order to kill its reach. But over the years since, it managed to become massively popular. Now, I'm not a film critic. This isn't a video about Idiocracy as a piece of cinema. It's about how the most extreme version of hyperbolic comedy, portraying the whole world as a slobbering mass of idiotic consumers, is becoming real. And I want to make a much more data-driven argument right now about why and specifically how that appears to be happening. However, there's one key difference here. In the movie, the degradation of human intelligence, and basic cognition for that matter, is a function of birth rates. As the more affluent portions of society struggle with choices about when or why or even if they ever want to have a child, those around them, the idiots, are breeding like rabbits. The film asserts that over hundreds of years, less intelligent people having much more offspring, as a kind of twisted evolutionary inversion, overwhelms the entire population, therefore dumbing everyone down to a level where they can't even hardly think for themselves. As a commentary on predatory capitalism, in addition to that, large corporations happily step in to monetize that issue, creating a sort of death spiral of sorts, ultimately resulting in people getting dumber and dumber and dumber with each passing generation, because none of them are ever forced to think for themselves. It's a fun movie, I do like it, which again has extremely uncomfortable parallels now. But setting aside the obvious and more surface level ones, like teenagers speaking with broken, grammatically absurd slang, or advertising as a concept invading deeper and deeper into our everyday lives, I want to make the argument that the cause of those issues is not a function of birth rates or genetics. It's a function of the tools that we're making, which supplant our own critical thinking. Let's get to it. I want to take a minute here and go on a bit of a tangent, I guess, because lately it feels like there's an overwhelming trend where the quality of what I call consensus news seems to be going rapidly downhill. Maybe that's because way too many people get their information from social media posts where the first word is
Yeah, and once it's
breaking
done, I
in
should
all
just
caps
basically throw
because
it
it's
in
just
the reply
engagement farming, let's
box,
be
yeah?
real. But it's also because media standards in general have gone wildly downhill. As a solution to that, I deliberately work with a platform called Ground News, which is today's video sponsor as well, because pulling
But then
together
I gotta
information from numerous
adjust.
sources into a central feed and using that feed to benchmark the sensationalized claims that you see on social media across multiple political quadrants is a process that, in my opinion at least, would serve the world quite well if more people used it. Ground News is best classified as an aggregate service. It gathers up all sorts of mainstream and independent sources, puts them in a single feed, and provides as much information as possible to the readers, while also giving bias ratings and clarifying corporate ownership. I've done a whole deep dive on their methodology,
And then
by
I
the
go
way, and I like what I
here.
found, hence why I continue working with them on a regular basis. Having a top down view of news stories from all over the political and geographic
Command
spectrum
dot
is much more valuable than falling into an
split.
echo chamber
Was
on
it?
any one particular side. And when those echo chambers are financially motivated as well, a tool that manages to pull things together and expose readers to content they otherwise would never see, even if they choose not to believe it or pursue it,
Yeah.
which is their prerogative, has no possible downside that I can think of. There's a bunch of other tools available on the website as well, like
So
blind spot
command
coverage or
dot
personal bias checkers.
split,
But for whatever reason you decide, if
and
you
then
click the
take
link
the
down below in the
first
description
entry,
or
see
scan
if
the
it's
QR code to
YouTube,
sign up, you'll get
YT,
40% off the Vantage plan today. Again, link down below,
which is what I'm adding here.
ground.news/echelon for 40% off a Vantage plan today. Big thank you to Ground News for sponsoring the channel. Okay, let me start with this. A small example first, and then we work our way up the ladder.
And then
Spell
I gotta
checkers.
change the URL.
Spell checkers are ubiquitous now. Everyone has them at practically every single level of education and work because they're embedded directly into our
1, 2,
devices,
3,
which means at a
third
certain
option,
level,
which
after a
is
child has learned
2,
basic grammar and spelling techniques in school, they'll begin using spell checking software nearly
which will be
100%
command
of the time in their
split.
day-to-day lives. No big deal,
I should
right?
do it
Spell
by
checking software helps us. But
spaces.
what if I told you it doesn't just help us, it also stagnates us? According to the International Journal of Social
And
Sciences and
then take
Educational
the
Studies
second
regarding
entry,
EFL
which is
students,
the
which is English
URL.
as a foreign language, quote, with the advent of technology, writing devices are now equipped
Throw
with
it in
autocorrection
command.
features that automatically corrects or generates a list of potential words to the author. This has made the task apparently easier. However, based on the cognitive load theory, when there is not enough effort and time given to complete a learning task, the chances to learn effectively reduce, end quote. Further down, quote again, having
I
taken
guess
the
we can try
aforementioned
it out
reasons
now,
and
huh?
challenges into account, the primary aim of the present research is to investigate the effects of autocorrection features on
Let's see this
spelling
one.
competence among
URL. Throw it in
EFL
here.
learners, end quote. This may seem like
Extract
nothing, I get
YouTube.
it, but if you go all the
Payload
way down to
not
the
defined.
results
Oh,
on page
whoa.
108,
I
you
didn't
find this,
adjust.
quote, the control group, participants who hand wrote writing tasks and assignments,
I don't
performed
need that then, no? Because I
enormously
don't have
better
a
at reducing
extra
the number of
entry.
misspelling words in their
And then I
tasks
gotta
in
make sure to
comparison
put
to the
this as
experimental group who
self dot
typed written tasks,
parse
end quote.
YouTube
Lastly, from the
worker.
conclusions, obviously quoting again, students who are deeply immersed in using programs with auto spell checker features don't hone spelling competence as students who depend on handwriting due to the fact that there is more effort involved in handwriting that makes the learning more sustained. End quote.
Payload again.
Of course, that is just one study, though it does very clearly seem to indicate that handwriting
Where's
and putting in
payload
more
popping up
effort will
now?
make you process learning better, and typing with a spell checker does not help you learn when it comes to English as a foreign language. But it is echoed elsewhere, right? The general premise.
Don't
From
need it,
University Technology
though.
Mara, a study called The Influence of Spell Checkers on Students' Ability to Generate Repairs
So
of
maybe
Spelling
empty
Errors.
string?
In the conclusion paragraph, page 10, quote, this research suggested that spell checkers have little to no effect whatsoever on students' spelling errors on the cognitive level. It did not help repair the errors, and the corrections are not internalized, thus allowing learners to
What you were
repeat the
given?
same
Oh,
error,
verbose.
end quote.
Verbose is
Like I
not a
said,
thing I
we're
need.
starting small, but the idea of ubiquitous
need any
spell
of
checking
that
software
stuff.
seems to indicate a stagnation of people's ability to actually improve their own spelling, which lets them repeatedly make similar and even identical errors without learning what is actually correct.
I don't.
Obviously, that's not the most harmful side effect in the
AI
world,
worker
but it's certainly not a
itself.
good
Really?
thing. Well, let's go one stone
I
up,
gotta make a
or
whole new
step
AI
rather, but I'll
worker.
make a comparison to a stone archway later on. And let's look at something else. Habitual use of GPS negatively impacts spatial memory during self-guided navigation. This study, from the Integrated Neuroscience Program at McGill University, I believe, was designed to examine the effects of GPS reliance among everyday
Let's
drivers.
do,
And
I guess I'll
without
make a whole
spending
new
too much
one.
time here boring everyone to death, it determined, quote, findings suggest that regularly using GPS affects spatial memory in a dose-dependent manner.
Worker
That is,
2,
the greater use of GPS, the greater decline in spatial memory over time.
and then remove
The
those
lack of a
extra
concurrent
bits and
decline in
pieces here.
subjective sense of direction suggests that this relationship is likely to be causal, end quote. To be clear, I'm not making the argument that these tools should be abolished, or even that the possible risks outweigh the benefits, at least not for GPS or maybe spell checkers. But if you took a 21-year-old today, right now, most of them, not all, but most, took away their access to GPS on their phone or in the car intrinsically, and told them, go on a road trip across the state now, half of them probably couldn't even do it.
Yeah,
And if they could,
that's the
it
sad
would take
part,
them
ain't
an
it?
exorbitant amount of time because they haven't properly developed the skill set of reading road signs or navigating a
Oh.
physical map. Once again, to make this abundantly clear,
Hello.
that's not the worst thing in the world. Lacking a skill set because you never needed to develop that skill set in the first place isn't intrinsically bad, especially if you can then figure out how to do something when it matters for yourself.
Going on?
But what if we go one step further now? Because even our ability to think critically and solve problems is now under siege, thanks to the advent of generative tools. Picture a Roman archway, stones on top of stones, but it never stands free or supports any weight at all without something called a keystone. The keystone
it's
is the
this guy
pinnacle
right here.
of that
It's
archway.
my little
It
face
often has a
llama
slightly different
application.
shape or it's measurably larger, while dispersing the
Currently,
most
basically
weight in the
functions
process,
as
therefore
a
supporting the
typical
entire
chat box.
archway as a whole. And critical
But I
thinking
want to
is the
expand its
keystone of
ability
human
using
cognition.
extra
Spell checkers and GPS programs,
tools.
they're just stones, one of
them
many
being
in the
Fabric.
archway. But generative tools, according to new data from researchers directly at Microsoft.
Let me pause that for a moment. Well, let me kind of give you a rundown. Let me first make sure it's working. Let me see. So parsing YouTube. Okay, so this tool is actually going to take a YouTube video and convert it to text so I don't have to spend 15, 30 minutes on a video and I can extract the information. It's kind of a little time saver. But let me see here. I reply. Oh yeah, I need to grab the scroll bar down. And after here, throw it down. Let's see if that works. No, missing payload. Oh wait, I didn't change the AI worker, which I need to do AI worker 2. I need to make that a little bit more flexible, but right now that's gonna have to do. Try again. Attribute no, attribute payload. I removed that attribute, so let me wait. Yeah, it's still asking for payload. Alright, let me see. AI worker 2, where's payload? Self-function payload verbose. I don't need any of that. Okay, maybe that's where it's asking. Trace back. exe type. Signal finish emit. Because I can do that directly on my I've been doing it here. So here's a video clip. Where's the URL? Fabric. So Fabric is a little tool that you can actually add to any AI. Well, that's actually its own parsing. Well, yeah, no. It uses the Ollama server. And basically what it does is it takes a URL. You have to enter in an API key for your Google account so it can actually access the data of the video. And basically summarizes that video. It's a part of the AI processes here. You can take a look at Fabric somewhere. Where's that window? Yeah, I gotta look it up again. Ah, it's a GitHub, so you gotta make sure you put that in there. It's by Daniel Miesler. Open source framework. It's got a bunch of features, and the pretty cool thing is you're able to create your own patterns. And basically, that's just text that prepares your AI for a specific input. For instance, this one was using pattern extract wisdom, and it takes that info to basically parse that video and give you all the listed features. Now I'm running Ollama in the background, which is where my application's working from, and I'm using Mistral to basically parse the data. And of course, I'm using it for code and stuff as well, just to kind of get some bits and pieces so I don't have to spend 50 hours searching online. AI is a tool, man. It's a great tool. It's just not a standalone tool. You gotta know how to work around all the technical details. So I'm trying to make a tool that doesn't have to, that can kind of bypass the technicals. Give or take, anyone should be able to use this application with some preparation, because each application needs its own kind of configurations, which requires the command line tool. Uh, let me see. So, hey, let's do that one. That's the one I'm trying to parse now. So if I go back to my fabric here, and I do fabric, Y, YouTube link, pattern, extract, wisdom. Now it's gonna go take that detail from the video, find the URL, grab the details from that data feed, and then start telling me what that video we're just watching is about. The problem with having it in the application is it takes a while for this to process, you can see. And the whole window, I'm trying to prevent it from crashing every time it tries to process something in the background. So I'm trying to use some agents to basically, or workers in the background, to let that run in the background so it doesn't cause any issues. Oh, I didn't do stream, that's why. All right, so if I do stream, you get to see the process of it thinking. Probably should have done that in this case. And give it a moment to do the AI thinking thing. My GPU is hot as heck right now, yeah. I'm at 92% GPU. Running the stream, running the AI, opening up tabs everywhere. It's quite the feat. Desktop manager. Maybe I should reduce some of my desktop. Oh, right. Maybe I should get rid of the. Do I have? No. Okay, I don't have my dock in place. It's actually not taking up extra desktop management processes. It's a thinker. This one's a 20-minute video? Yeah, 20-minute, 34-second. And while that's working, trying to take out payloads. Okay, I removed all the payloads. So can we do the extraction? Oh, I don't want to do it twice. Oh, it's just gonna blow up my graphics card. Ah, wow. Well, no wonder it took forever. All right, there it is. Summary. Video discusses the movie Idiocracy. Argues that society is becoming more like the world portrayed. The film Idiocracy is a scathing critique of American corporatism, depicting a world where people are brain dead and basic infrastructure is falling apart. I don't know if you've seen that movie, but great movie. Highly recommend. Both for the lols and let me see, is that available on YouTube? Can we watch a movie while I'm coding? Nah. Welcome to Costco. I love you. It's ridiculous. If you know, you know. All right, so now I'm trying to get all of that working in my container. The video raises concerns about the impact of technology on critical thinking and societal intelligence. There's a big breach, man. There's a big breach. Like, technology is such a great tool for us to excel forward, but then we misuse it and depend on it, and then we just start not using our head. And we just end up basically depending on it. It's a human thing. Being dependent on something can be quite a plus and minus. All right. Back to the process. Can I get it to go? Cannot concatenate. It's working. Concatenate string to PySide Q line edit to string. My GPU is not working hard this time, so it doesn't look like it's gone. Oh, right. Do I gotta extract that text? Hold up. Line edit 2. Llama API. How did I extract it before? Not here. I think it's in the AI query. Edit text. Right. I gotta do that text. Dot text function.
Microsoft, if used improperly, can, quote, result in the deterioration of cognitive faculties that ought to be preserved. As Bainbridge noted, a key irony of automation is that by mechanizing routine tasks and leaving exception handling to the human user, you deprive the user of the routine opportunities to practice their judgment and strengthen their cognitive musculature, leaving them atrophied and unprepared when the exceptions do arise, end quote. For this one, I do have to read a few more segments, not just one, because honestly, I just have to, but bear with me. Quote, the data identify key motivators for critical thinking, the desire to enhance work quality, avoid negative.
I'm trying to bear. Uh-oh. Jerome versus Trump.
Hi, everyone. I'm Maggie McGrath, senior editor at Forbes. Fed Chair Jerome Powell addressed the House and the Senate this week, and his comments touched on everything from inflation rates and interest rates and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau to cryptocurrency. Joining us now to talk about it all is Steve Forbes. Steve, thank you so much for being here.
Good to be with you, Maggie. Thank you.
So, Fed Chair Jerome Powell touched on a lot of subjects. Can you just give a brief overview of what stood out the most to you in his testimonies this week?
What stood out the most, and certainly got the president's attention, was no cuts in interest rates. They think they have inflation under control, and I think what has happened recently in terms of the inflation numbers that came out this week is reinforcing the Fed's decision to stand down and do nothing. And what this gets to, though, is even though people focused on that, is the whole model of the Federal Reserve. What's going to be coming up in the months ahead, and investors should be prepared for it, is there's going to be a big fight between the White House and the Federal Reserve. Not about the Fed's independence, not even the particulars of interest rates, but the whole way the Fed operates. The Fed has this belief, shared by other central bankers, that prosperity causes inflation. And so therefore they try to manipulate the economy, either stimulate it or hurt it, slow it down, impede it, because they think that's the way you control inflation. They forget there are two kinds of inflation. One is what you might call non-monetary. So like you have bird flu, that's going to raise the prices of eggs. Interest rates are not going to affect how many eggs hens lay or how many hens are around. So they can't control non-monetary inflation. What they can control is monetary inflation, traditional kind, which the definition is lowering the value of your currency, usually by creating too much of it. And so the Fed, but no one at the Fed, no one at any other central bank around the world talks about stability of currencies. They all focus on the economy. Do we goose it? Do we impede it? It's a fundamental flaw. It's called the Phillips curve, derives from something called the Phillips curve. It's not a baseball pitch. It's named after an economist who posited back in the 50s and 60s that there's a trade-off between inflation and unemployment. If you want lower unemployment, you have to have higher inflation. If you want lower inflation, you have to have higher unemployment. Well, today the Fed has been in a muddle because you've had low unemployment, and until recently you had high inflation. That was not supposed to happen. And it shows the Fed's view of the world is wrong. So the Fed should be focusing on a stable value for the dollar. And this is where the Fed is looking at the wrong numbers. Right now, two good barometers of trouble for future inflation, i.e. the value of the currency, is general commodity prices. Everyone focuses on oil, but if you look at the general indexes, they've been soaring up over 20%. The gold price, very good long-term barometer of inflation signals. That has gone up enormously, approaching nearly $3,000 an ounce. That should tell the Fed the dollar is weak, even though we're doing better than other currencies. Right now we have a situation in the world of junk currencies. None of them is really stable. The dollar's better than the others. But talk about baseball coming up, it's like having a 200 hitter leading the league. Yeah, it's pretty poor.
So what do you wish you had heard from the Fed chairman in this testimony this week?
I knew it wasn't going to happen, but I wish the Fed chairman had said, Jerome Powell had said, in the future we're going to focus on a stable value for the dollar, get stability for the dollar and hopefully then other currencies. And we're not going to try to stimulate or impede economic activity. If you step back and think of it, it's amazing in a democracy, free enterprise system, that we'd have a group of people in Washington trying to determine the level of economic activity. And that's why we get this talk of if times are good, the Fed starts to talk about, oh, is the economy overheating? Now think of how absurd that is. If you get a pay raise, do you start sweating at night? Oh, I'm overheating? Take it away. No, it's preposterous. The economy's not a machine. But that's the way they think. So they either try to stimulate or hurt economic activity. And I wish they'd move away from that model, but it's going to take a fight with the Fed to change that whole way of looking at the world. So in the meantime, the Fed is stoking inflation without even knowing it.
Now, Steve, you mentioned
that's the headline. They're stoking
inflation without even knowing it.
Let's see if
okay,
it works.
There's our headline. I want to drill down into something that you said about commodities prices and gold prices. It's similar to something that President Trump said at Davos, which was oil prices are coming down, so interest rates should come down. And the Fed Chairman Powell said this week that we do not need to be in a hurry to adjust our policy stance. So what do you make of the disagreement between the president and the Fed chair?
Well, the president wants lower interest rates because he thinks that's going to stimulate the economy. And he thinks that we're going to get lower energy prices as we bring in the months ahead, open up more and more fields, start rebuilding infrastructure and energy, start getting some LNG exporting facilities up and running. That takes time. But you just can't look at the oil price. You got to look at all general commodities. Oil is in a situation where we have a world economy that's not doing very well, so demand is not very vigorous. And and the idea that you control the economy by manipulating interest rates is something that is bogus. They're using the wrong instrument. If you want to have a stable value for the dollar, you make sure you're not printing too much money. And so if commodity prices overall are stable and the gold price is flat, okay, that's fine. If they're going down, that means you're too tight. If they're going up a lot, that means you're too loose. So the market signals are there, but they ignore them. Not always. In the past, when Alan Greenspan ran the Fed for a while in the 1990s, he followed gold. He said so publicly. He followed commodity prices. And it worked. For some reason, he moved away from it in the early 2000s. But so follow the market signals. And so in terms of, I think President Trump knows something's not right and is trying to get his arms around it. But you can't just look at the Fed and manipulating interest rates. It's a trap.
President Trump has indicated that he thinks he knows more about interest rates than Chairman Powell. Do you agree with that?
I think he knows more about what makes an economy work and what fuels inflation than Chairman Powell does. The Fed, remarkably, has been wrong on inflation time and time again. Even before COVID, if you looked at market signals, the dollar was starting to be under pressure. They grossly underestimated, talk about non-monetary inflation, the impact of the lockdowns and how when you disrupt the sophisticated, ultra detailed supply chains you have today and you have one thing that doesn't work, discombobulates everything. They totally underestimated that. And so that sent up prices. And so in terms of interest rates, I think Powell needs to have some remedial education. But he's not alone. The whole central bank world has this idea the economy controls inflation. No. You control inflation by how much money you create or not create.
Now, Powell's term is scheduled to end in 2026, more than a year from now. Could President Trump remove him?
The answer is yes. The Fed is not a fourth branch of government, even though it would like us to believe it. It's a creature of Congress. And if you have a battle between the Fed chairman and the president will ultimately win. Classic example is in the late 40s and early 50s when the White House got in a fight with the Fed on interest rates. The Fed eventually got to control interest rates, but the chairman of the Fed was ousted and a new one was brought in. So in the real world, the president will win. Moreover, in a peculiarity of the U.S., dollar policy is actually lodged in the Treasury Department.
Oh, yeah.
Not in the Fed. So if the president and the Treasury Secretary determine Powell must go, his position will be untenable. And they'll have to have a new accord. They had a peace treaty in 1951, the Treasury Accord. They'll have to have another one, but he could. But there may be a situation where he doesn't want to commit the political capital, but start the debate. How is this institution operated? What are their assumptions? Why has their record been so poor over the years? And that lays the groundwork for a new head to come in early 2026 who will change the way the Fed operates.
Now, at the top of the conversation, I mentioned that Powell addressed not just interest rates, but also the future of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and cryptocurrency. On these other topics, did anything stand out to you?
Well, I think the whole Consumer Bureau is very interesting. Protection Bureau, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. I love how they come up with these mouthful of words. But anyway, it was funded in, I think, a peculiar and unconstitutional way. And that is, instead of getting an annual appropriation from Congress, as every other government agency does, it's funded by the Fed. The Fed earns interest on the bonds it holds.
Why did you crash?
Until recently, it always had a surplus,
That's a long
which it turned over to the Treasury. At one point, it was turning over $100 billion a year to the Treasury Department. In this case,
well, at least it works.
they did an end run against Congress and had the Fed directly send the cash over to the Bureau.
We're watching right now.
And so there's no traditional accountability. Now, the Fed, as only a central bank in modern times could do, is losing money. It is operating in the red because during quantitative easing, they so lowered long-term interest rates and bought so many. At one point, the Fed had over $9 trillion on its balance sheet, whereas before the crisis of 2008, 2009, it was only $800 billion.
Maybe the background,
so at one point, it was now about $7 trillion, but 10 times what it was traditionally in the past. But those bonds and mortgages were 1%, 2%, 3%. Well, the Fed also decided years ago to pay interest on bank reserves. Banks take their cash and deposit at the Fed every day. And so they paid interest on those bank deposits. Well, when interest rates went up, guess what? Short rates were 4 or 5%. The Fed was earning 1 or 2 or 3% on its bonds, and so it is losing money. So the challenge is that, okay, you're losing money, therefore you don't have a surplus to finance this Consumer Bureau. Therefore, we can get rid of it without we can defund it because you don't have the cash there. And so that's going to be a big battle. And as for cryptos, they're going to still be wondering what this is all about. But the key thing there is making sure the central bank doesn't issue a cryptocurrency, a crypto dollar, because then they'd know everything you spend your money on. They'd have a record.
It sounds a little bit like too much surveillance, perhaps.
Yes.
On the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, we've heard from Democrats that the agency has saved.
By the way, I love how the government loves to surveil us, but when we start surveilling them and be like, hey, we need to audit what you doing with our money, what you doing with our tax money. Oh no, they're gonna destroy everything. Oh, nice, 83%. That's not bad. That's actually way better. Oh no, you can't look at what we're spending our money on. Hello, yeah, because you're looking at ours. We can look at yours. Thank you, Doge.
American consumers something like $20 billion since it was created, and has served as a watchdog and a source on information on student loans 100%. And overdraft fees. If it is dismantled, where does that oversight?
And the double screen doesn't help either.
Does it go to the states, in your opinion?
No, it goes to various regulatory
every single part of my. Okay, I think I'm gonna pause that.
And law enforcement agencies, just as it was before.
Gotta pause that video because my computer about to blow up. Hey, Katie. Say hello to the people watching. Yo. Yo. How you doing? You being a cat? Okay, bye. Oh. And now he's just messing with the doormat. Gotta clean them claws. Okay, this is taking some time though, ain't it? I mean, I'm not hovering too heavy on the 100%. That's a good sign. And just kidding, we're up there again. Dang, man. I mean, the last time it went crazy. My computer crashed, so if suddenly I disconnect, y'all know what happened. My GPU just overthunk itself to the grave. Come on, baby, give me that response. Give me that parsed video. Alright, so if you're watching, you're wondering what's going on, I'm trying to essentially take a video on YouTube. This is the one. It's the one we're currently watching. And I'm trying to take it into an AI and process the information so it can give me a nice summary. And it's thinking about it. It's thinking real hard about it. Alright, let me close this, this, and this. It's thinking real good about it. And it's taken up. I guess it's in the window desktop manager where my graphic is being used by CUDA. Just waiting for my results. All I want to see is that text, that beautiful text telling me what that video is about. It is a 20-minute or 16-minute video, so that's probably going to take that extra time on that though. Should have probably chose a shorter video when I'm streaming. Oh, it hurts. It hurts to see my graphics card on the edge. Me. What if I remove that little pop-up? Am I gonna save some extra? God, I gotta turn off my whole stream just to get that extra bit of GPU space up in here. All I needed it to do is just to print out the text right in this little white box. Give me that luscious text, baby girl. Let's go. Hmm. It should be working though. Scenes untitled. This ain't no untitled scene, but alright. Oh yes, webpage exe. Oh, there's a webpage taking up 13%. I thought I turned that sucker off. Is it the scroll? I turned off the scroll. You want to save those resources now? No? You don't want to? That's unfortunate. Kinda. A little bit. It's not really doing much. OBS browser extension. Trying to figure out what extension that is. No, this is the longest parsing I've seen so far. It's not that big of a deal, my dude. Alright, let me close that out. I think it's hanging. Alright, let's try again with a different video. Back to the Idiocracy one. That one's like a minute. It shouldn't take that long for this one. Oh, dude. My OBS be like, yo, we overloaded. Consider turning down the video settings, which I actually might, honestly. The output. It's a medium quality, huh? Is that gonna mess something up? That raised my GPU up in here. Hold up. That's not what I wanted to do. Can't change the encoder preset. Let's try this one. Kitty cat, what's up? Cat fight. Yeah, yeah. Oh no, it crashed. Oh, it worked, but it crashed again. Why does it do that? Why do that again? That's so weird. So something in the reply AI box. Maybe in the reply, yeah. It's gotta be something here. Reply AI box. Llama response. Maybe the save session. Is that gonna be it? Append response. Oh man. Maybe I gotta make sure it's gonna be a string. So let's do this. Let's verify it's a string by using the string function to make sure I'm not sending it something weird. GPU doubt. Oh, look at that. The encoding's a little better, I guess. No, it's still 50. That's not gonna do much. It's gonna keep on fluctuating. And we try again. The testing process is always the longest process and most boring process because I'm not actually coding. I'm just trying to see if my code is working. Crashed again. Voila, on the dot. Why is it doing that? Can I just throw it in the big editor without having to do all this extra stuff here? Let's see. Without calling that function. Skip an extra step, maybe save some efficiency. Yeah, I know what I mean, Jelly Bean. It did work faster though. I'm very happy about that much. That's a good sign. So I don't gotta wait as much.
wasn't as if nothing was being done about
Maybe I
financial
can run the
fraud
video
until this
again
thing was
without crashing.
created 10 or 12 years ago.
Nice.
So
I
it
think
goes
I
back
can.
to what it was before. So, yeah, wrongdoing. You got the SEC, you got various bank regulators on a federal and local state level. You have law enforcement. So if skullduggery is going on, you ferret and root it out. So it's not as if it's Wild West time. It was an agency created at the behest of a senator, Senator Warren. They brought in various orders and rules from other agencies and brought them all together. Well, you undo them again. And because they didn't have that accountability to Congress each year, they went and did.
Hey, you little harasser. Trying to harass me.
Things
Trying
that
to
were not
harass
based
me.
on
Trying to
fact. They
harass
went
me.
after auto dealers. Financing, and turns out it was fact-free. The courts have overruled them several times. So as an agency looking for a mission and creating more trouble than doing good. So, yeah, the surveillance will be there. It's just we'll have one less bureaucracy involved.
Now, at the top of the conversation, you said investors will have to watch the debate around the structure of the Fed. And I was intending to ask you what you think the market's reaction to Powell's comments will be in the near and medium term. But if you're speaking to Wall Street, if you're speaking to investors, what's your message for how the next 1 to 3 months could unfold?
Well, right now, everyone is saying, oh, status quo, it's expected, no big deal. You saw that in the reaction in the marketplace. But I think what investors should look at is when it becomes apparent that the inflation has not been totally conquered as they measure it, which is a whole other subject.
No more crashing.
I think investors are going to see fireworks. And initially, the markets are going to be upset because it's going to be portrayed as inflation-happy White House versus the guardians at the Federal Reserve. And it's going to take a while for people to fully realize, no, it's about the real model of the Federal Reserve. And so I hope officials, and I think you should have conferences and seminars and all of that. How should the Fed operate? What should it be its operating model?
I think I'm going to do some
So
games.
you set a basis of what the real debate's going to be about. How should the Fed operate?
How should the Fed operate? The big question.